you can only do your best and give your best.
I say the sky is not the limit.
That too, you know. So
beyond the sky.
So
come to think of it, that's what we're doing on the show. 2 pieces of, if you like, meat.
Yeah. I don't know what you're saying. But that's how we're me to the start of the show. This morning, of course, I'll serve you the news in a bit, and then we get into the news review. And for today, NDC parliamentary candidate for South Tongu, Maxwell Lukuto, will be our guest for the news review.
Well, right after that, we'll serve you sports as always. Muftau Nabila Abdullahi will be on hand, and then we get into the big stories. Now, today, starting up, we're hosting Member of Parliament for South Dai, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo. You would know that he was part of the minority MPs who did the symbolic handing over or commissioning of the National Cathedral yesterday. They were heckled, but they still went ahead and did it. He's also part of the sponsors of the anti-LGBTQ bill. We'll be engaging him on these and other issues this morning as he joins us for breakfast.
The National Cathedral, huh? But, well, we'll get into that later on in the show. Also, today we've got a conversation on the prevalence of teenage pregnancy in Kwalano. Data from the Ghana Statistical Service shows that about 15.2% of female adolescents in Ghana, aged between 15 and 19, have ever been pregnant. So the prevalence within the age range is almost 1/5 of the global prevalence. The regional disparities are striking, with teenage pregnancy rates ranging from 6% in Greater Accra region to 26% in the Savannah region. We'll get into the nitty-gritties of that later on in the show.
And then we'd be telling you about the Certified Water Education Ghana Group. Now, the primary objective of this initiative by Grant for Safe Water and funded by the Paul Dew Jensen Foundation is to build certified technical and vocational educational training programs for students in Ghana to increase the capacity and skill levels of young Ghanaians in the water sector. We'll be telling you a lot more about what they've been up to right here on the show.
And then we get into our favorite part, and we interact with you. Open the phone line, but you can also join us on social media during the course of the program, on Joy News on TV, on all social media platforms. Let us know what your thoughts are on everything we'll be discussing later on in the show. So when we do open the phone lines, please call us and join us.
Well, that's how we're going to do it. But for now, before she gets into the serious stuff, serenading you with the news, if you like. Getting jiggy with it. Get jiggy on the news.
Let's get jiggy on the news. This is the AM News on the AM Show. Let's get into the details. Starting with President Akufo-Addo has charged Ghanaians to preserve the hard-fought 31 years of stable democracy, though not perfect. He's highlighted the consistent improvement seen in each election during the Fourth Republic. Now, the president emphasized the need for continuous learning and increased tolerance for differing opinions, cautioning against any regression. He's been speaking at the 67th Independence Day celebration held in the Eastern region.
My dear compatriots, fellow Ghanaians, the theme chosen for this year's Independence Day celebrations is our democracy, our pride. And I welcome all of you to Akufo-Addo, the capital of the Eastern region, which is hosting the celebrations this year. The decision to rotate the scene of the national celebrations around the country, instead of staging them only in Accra, the nation's capital, has certainly turned out to be a welcome nation-building exercise that helps us to focus attention on a different region every year, and at the same time rallies the nation together in that region. Our host this year, the Eastern region, was very much at the center of the independence struggle of our country. It is home to 3 members of the Big Six of the United Gold Coast Convention, UGCC of blessed memory. I've mentioned specific groups that make up the Eastern region, but as I stated earlier, it is a region where the whole of Ghana merges into a melting pot and lives in harmony, and different groups feed on the strength of each other for the good of the whole. This is the same scenario that is played on the national scene, where different people have come together to form the Ghanaian nation and a national identity for the past 67 years. Fellow Ghanaians, we have good reason to choose as our theme and to celebrate our democracy, our pride, at this 67th anniversary of our independence. We are a democratic nation, and not every country can make such a claim. It is important to note that the democratic system of government we have today was not given to us at independence. More than 100 years of British rule have not prepared us in any way for democracy. There is nothing democratic about colonial rule, and whatever we have today, we have worked out for ourselves. All the defining elements of a democracy that are part of our governance architecture today, we have had to fabricate ourselves. Everything we know about elections today, and we know quite a bit, we have learned through hard practice, and in the past 31 years, we have been stable. We've not got a perfect system, but every time we've had elections during this Fourth Republic, it has been an improvement on the previous occasion. We have still a lot more to learn, especially when it comes to the tolerance of opposing views.
On the economy, President Akufo-Addo is optimistic Ghana is on the brink of a breakthrough as the worst challenges are now in the past.
Fellow Ghanaians, I know that we have gone through difficult economic circumstances, but it is clear that we have overcome the worst, and we are looking forward to better times. I wish to make reference in particular to two projects coming on stream that should make a great difference to the economic fortunes of our country. I refer to the successful selection of strategic partners that will work with the Ghana Integrated Aluminum Development Corporation, GIADEC, to build a new alumina refinery and develop mines at Nyinahini in Pasaso, as 3 or 4 projects being executed under the Integrated Aluminum Industry IAI projects. I've witnessed the signing of 2 agreements in Accra recently. Firstly, between GIADEC, a wholly owned public entity, and Rockshore International, a wholly owned Ghanaian private company, selected after a rigorous process as a strategic partner to develop a mine at Nyinahini in Pasaso. The other major project that is coming on stream, which is bound to make a dramatic change to the economy, is the Adar Songor Salt Project, being spearheaded by Electrochem Salt Mine Limited, led by the dynamic Ghanaian entrepreneur, Mr. Dan McCaughey, aka McDan. After many years of disputes, which prevented the exploitation of salt at the site, work has finally started, and salt will be mined on a large commercial scale. The Electrochem salt mine will be the biggest salt-producing facility in the whole of Africa. These are figures that should spell a significant change in the economy and cheer us up. I am optimistic that together with other initiatives of this government, we are on the verge of a breakthrough in our economic fortune.
Now, Central Regional Minister Justina Marigold Hassan is asking Ghanaians to use the independence celebration to protect the peace of the country. According to her, that's the only way the country can achieve its development targets. She was addressing the 6th March parade in Cape Coast. There's more in this report.
The regional minister, Justine Namari-Godassan, emphasized the need for the public to uphold peace, especially when the general elections are just around the corner.
We all know that this is an election year, and very soon political parties and interest groups will various political platforms across the length and breadth of the country with different messages. Let us take cues from what happened from years back in countries like Sierra Leone, Sudan, Congo, Somalia, Colombia, Liberia, La Côte d'Ivoire, just to mention a few. There is no need to belabor the boils of war and the reign of humanity in these countries. I wish to use this occasion to urge all of us to guard against all tendencies that can destroy our peace and democracy.
Justine Namari-Godassan called for a rededication to Ghana's development.
Significantly, investment has been made in areas of roads, infrastructure, education, health facilities, tourist sites, agriculture, and sport, among others. Our fisherfolk, traders, farmers, youth, and women groups have all benefited from national policies and programs. Truly, we have much to be grateful for. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, those of us in the central region have also contributed immensely to Ghana's proud democracy of having conducted ourselves peacefully in this dispensation. As we mark 67 years of nationhood, I urge all stakeholders from the public and private sectors, civil society organizations, and indeed all Ghanaians to rededicate ourselves to the cause of Ghana's development. We must work even harder to reduce corruption and poverty, build more infrastructure, create jobs for the youth, empower women, and sustain our development.
The students, as well as the security agencies, took part in the parade in the central regional capital, Cape Coast.
High School.
Now, for the 4th time in 5 years, the Independence Parade for the Upper West region was held outside the regional capital. The event, which took place at Laura, had 8 contingents of security personnel, 35 basic second cycle and tertiary institutions and voluntary organizations taking part in the parade. Upper West Regional Minister Dr. Hafiz bin Sali said, though the Electoral Commission has lots of responsibility to ensure credible election, much also depends on political parties to demonstrate elections are not a do-or-die affair. Rafiq Salam reports from Laura.
A contingent of security personnel drawn from the Ghana Armed Forces 10 Mechanized Battalion, Ghana Police Service, Ghana Prison Service, Ghana National Fire Service, Ghana Immigration Service, and the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority took part in the 67th Upper West Regional Parade held at Laura. They were joined in the 2-hour march past by 14 primary, 17 junior high, and 3 senior high schools. Also included on the list were 1 tertiary institution and some voluntary organizations under the instruction of Parade Commanding Officer Susi Akabans.
The parade 2IC will be handing over the parade shortly. The parade
The number of participating schools and time for the event was reduced following reports of suspected cases of cerebrospinal meningitis (CSM) in the region. The region, in the past couple of months, had recorded 81 suspected cases of the disease and claimed 4 lives. The 35 basic, senior high schools, and tertiary institutions and the voluntary organization kick-started a march past, starting with the primary schools. The 10th Mechanized Battalion led the way when it came to the turn of the security contingents, starting with slow marching and followed by the other sister security services. They then moved into a high gear, quickening the pace of their movement and into quick march.
And lastly, the number 8 contingent.
Our Power Senior Minister, Dr. Hafiz bin Sali, in his address, paid glowing tribute to the founding fathers of the country and those who were involved in the country's fight for independence. Dr. bin Sali noted that in recent past, the West African sub-region has been under the threat of terrorism and violent extremism, and tied it with the numerous chieftaincy and land disputes around the country.
West Africa has been under the threat of terrorism and violent extremism, rapidly spreading from the Sahel towards the borders. Many of our neighbors, notably Burkina Faso, have already fallen victim to attacks by these extremist groups. Internally, we have so many chieftaincy and land disputes around the country, serving as potential breeding grounds for internal tension and destabilization. We have had our share of political instability and experimentation about how we should govern ourselves. In the end, we opted for multi-party democracy under the 1992 Constitution. Even though it is not a perfect document, it has, this far, served us well, and we have witnessed the most sustained period of stability and economic growth in our country's history.
Turning to the 2024 general election, he noted that democracies are founded on credible elections, hence a huge responsibility lies on the Electoral Commission, government, and the political parties to ensure that the country has credible elections.
The government is doing its part to make the work of the Electoral Commission go smoothly. Meanwhile, a lot of responsibilities lie on the political parties to demonstrate that elections are not a do or die affair. Seeing the vigorous media and civil society organizations constantly scrutinize public discourse equally gives me pleasure.
And students of the St. Paul Lutheran School are hopeful the safety and peace being enjoyed in the country would be maintained. Speaking on the sidelines of a military drill organized by the school and security agencies to commemorate the country's 67th Independence Day, the students who dressed to represent the various security agencies also shared their pride in representing the officers. There's more in the following report.
Students of the St. Paul's Lutheran School have the view that the country has made great strides 67 years after gaining independence. Speaking on the sidelines of a military drill organized by the school and security agencies, they indicated that the development of the country hinges on security, adding that the country has made great progress in health development since Ghana gained independence.
I believe Ghana has done well because over the past few years, there haven't been any form of conflict or external aggression with the country. And yes, by the help of the army, we are maintaining peace across the borders of the country of Ghana.
Sudan was a country because when Kwame Nkrumah gained independence for us, he saved us from slavery and many other things. He built a lot of buildings for us.
Representing Ghana Army today is a privilege because they have been really helpful throughout the years of Ghana's independence. Yes, and they have really kept the country in shape for us.
We have to fight for nature and protect our city from enemies. And also, we have to protect ourselves from dangerous people who like to harm us.
Okojo Brakon, the executive director of the St. Paul's Lutheran School, the move is expedient in educating the younger generation and ensuring a better Ghana.
Purpose for this drill is to inculcate in the children or to revive the spirit of patriotism among our children. So that when they grow up, they know that they have a nation, Ghana, that they have to die for, protect it, make it successful. We also want them to know that be aware about all the security services in Ghana and their contribution towards the development of our nation, Ghana.
That will be all for the AM News on the AM Show. It's time now for the conversations and engagement. Up next is the news review. Please stay with us till 10 a.m.
Welcome back. Time now for us to slice and dice the newspapers. But right before we get into that, I have to let you know this segment always brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And of course, they're offering you free prostate screening if you're a man, free fertility screening if you're a woman. If you don't check out your health could surprise you. It's like a car on which you don't do any maintenance, or you check some things and leave other things. And boom, someday you find out that your gearbox is out of shape, your engine is on full blast, it's getting out of order and all of that. You need to check yourself out. Prostate, so little. It's very small, like a walnut or something, but it could mess you up. If you're a woman, your fertility, you take it for granted. Maybe you've not even given birth to children yet. It could compromise your ability to give birth to children. And even if you have, it could give you so many issues later on in life, which is why you want to be checking yourself from time to time. And the best place to do it, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They are giving you all of these for free, screening for free. Reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronomagwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Isiama Nzema. Their call lines are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But for now, let me bring you the NDC's parliamentary candidate for South Tong in the person of Maxwell Lukuto. Good morning, Max. Maxwell, can you hear me? You'd have to unmute. If you can hear me, Maxwell, please unmute for me so I can hear you, even as I see it in your dashing green batakari with your hat. Okay, Maxwell is trying to. Okay, I can hear you now. The next time we go through this, I'm going to tax you.
Very well. Agreed?
We usually go through this. The next time I have to remind you to unmute, I'm going to tax you. Deal?
Apparently your sound was off and I was trying to find a way around it. So.
Oh, okay. So we found a way around it now. But thank you so much, Max. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Happy Independence Day has come to meet us, the 67th. And yesterday I was at the district level ceremony. You know, we have a new DCE. He was voted for just last week, Saturday. And this is his first official appearance in the public to perform his official duty as the new DCE of South Tong. And so I was there in the company of the Member of Parliament and all other dignitaries in the constituency. And so, yes, we are happy that we have marked another day of our independence, and it's refreshing. It's good. We are okay, and we can be grateful to God because this is what we have, and this is what we can be proud of. It could be better than this, though, yes. But we can only thank God for how far He's brought us. Yes.
All right, so as we usually do, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to dilate on anything that has really caught your interest. I mean, I don't think we've had an interaction since the SONA was delivered. There's also the case about the LGBTQ bill. There's the case about the National Cathedral. So many things. I don't know what you would want to talk about, but over to you. You have about 2 minutes, maximum 2.5 minutes. Tell us what's on your mind.
So it's about this LGBTQ I++ thing that Parliament has finally passed, to the joy of 98% or more of Ghanaians, because it looked like the larger population of Ghanaians, including parliamentarians, have agreed that we should put something in place to deter people from especially promoting these LGBTQI activities in our schools and on our little ones who they would want to indoctrinate. Some of us are so highly elated to have this law passed. It's unfortunate that the president is dragging his feet.
So the bill has been passed. It's not law yet.
So
it's not been made into an act.
For it to be assented to by the president to become a law, yes. And so it's unfortunate that the president is dragging his feet. And even before the issue was taken to court, he preempted by saying that he knew somebody was taking it to court. The question is, how did you know that somebody was going to take the issue to the Supreme Court? Right. So I see it to be only for the economists. That is why he's dragging his feet. But apparently within his heart, I believe that he knows that this is what Ghana should be doing. And for me, in Africa, we are not the first country going to pass this law. Despite whatever the West will say about human rights violations and Odrigadekos and all the people in Ghana, I think that we have gone through the process and we are doing the right thing. They are just making commentaries.
Is that to say that you are not concerned about any human rights questions that may be raised on it?
It's not that I'm not concerned about any human rights these things that will be raised. This bill has gone through a lot of layers. I'm sure the human rights community has been consulted. They made their input. Parliament looked at it. We have gone beyond those things.
The committee had its sittings, and some of them came and also made their presentations. That's true.
So for me, I don't know what else they are talking about now, because Parliament has been so meticulous with these things. It was the last stage that Benumaki was trying to pull some strings. I don't know for what reason, but I'm sure we've gone through that stage, and all he said, the president should just assent to it. Yes, there's civil societies, Peace Council, Charismatic Churches Council, and all those other groupings who were for the bill. Let's make noise now and allow the president to sign, so that it doesn't look like it's a personal thing he's doing. I know the West is putting some pressure on him, and then they are threatening, especially about the economics. But for me, this is what we want for ourselves. And nobody, we are a sovereign state, nobody can dictate to us what we should do with ourselves. And so I think that we should just assent to it.
Anyway, even as you talk about that, Ghana Beyond Aid comes to mind. When you want to do these things, you might as well be self-sufficient in many ways as well, but you are taking money from the very same people who are in support of this. So you see here, you put your money where your mouth is. You want to do bele, bele, bele. Where's your money to even fund your budget? Your own budget, you can't fund it, and you need donor support. I guess all of that must be factored in, mustn't it?
Yeah, sure, it has to be factored in. But at the end of the day, for me, so that's why I am seeing President Akufo-Addo as just being a rhetoric. He brings out many cliches, and he doesn't live to any of them. Ghana Beyond Aid, making Ghana the cleanest city, or Accra the cleanest city in Africa within how many years? 2-3 years, and we are in the 7th, almost ending the 8th year, and we aren't seeing anything. For me, so yesterday when I was listening to him at the 67th anniversary celebration, just making statements, I was just laughing, I was just giggling, because I know these are things he does, and he doesn't mean them. What do we mean by Ghana Beyond Aid? What has he done about it? Where are we now? Now that people have to dictate to us whether we can pass laws in our own sovereign state.
The president says he's proud of his record, of what he's done and what he's leaving behind. And other things he's also done. He promised free SHS. He's delivered. He promised 1D, 1F, among a number of other things. And he's delivered, hasn't he?
He's delivered the 1D, 1F where? How many of them? Where
At least,
are they?
No matter how many, I've been a chief critic of 1D, 1F, but he's built some. He's also supported some others. At least he's done something.
You see, for me, this was just dancing around the like musical chair, dancing around the chair and coming to sit on one. How many chairs do we have? About 15, and then you dance around, you sit on one, you wake up again. There are a lot of establishments that already existed, and out of nothing, they decided to give them tax rebate to absorb them into this 1D1. Look at B5. What has it done specially about B5 to make it a 1D1F?
You're talking about the steel manufacturer or producer, B5 in Tema, right? Yes, anyway.
Yes. So, and add many other companies that were already in existence. You just come and add, put some 1D1F signboard on the industry and claim it is a 1D1F thing. So for me, it's not really anything that we can tout.
But for some of them, the support was largely through maybe tax waivers and other things. That wouldn't be something that you would be able to quantify, but they would.
No, but the issue is that, you see, if we are looking for more money and we are taxing everything, including the bet that our little ones go through and our Momo transaction and all those things, why do you go and give tax rebate to somebody who is already established and doing good in his business just because you want to add a 1D1F establishment name to whatever they are doing? And for me, they are rather killing us to want to force the 1D1F into the system. Instead of going through the normal process, allow these people to pay their taxes and give us some relief by ourselves, they rather go behind, tax us, and go and give it free of charge to other people who are already established. For me, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. His record is not too good. Of course, I'm not expecting him to say that he hasn't done anything. Just like his vice president has said, you see, the vice president has passed a vote of no confidence in the president that he's advised to honor Planquet to. He said that there are many things that he's not done well, and when he becomes the president, he's going to take a lot of those things away. So if your vice president says that, and you are beating your chest to say that you have done so well, you are leaving a good record, then what are you talking about? Your own person who you sit in the same office with to discuss issues and to take policy decisions and to drive them, he's the one who is saying that most of the things you are doing, he does not subscribe to them, and that when he becomes president, he's going to take them off. So for me, that alone is the testimonial that his vice president has written about him. I'm not expecting him to come and tell me that he hasn't done anything, but of course, to me and to many Ghanaians, he's done little, and he's the worst president, I believe, that we've ever had in Ghana.
That's a pretty harsh verdict. But anyway, let's get into the papers now and find out what you think about some of these stories. The Daily Graphic newspaper this morning. Constitutionality of anti-gay bill challenged. Then Ghana paved way for Africa. Alassane Ouattara, the Ivorian president, said so. But now mentioning Alassane Ouattara, yesterday I wasn't the only one. You watched the images and then you saw, I don't know whether it was a gaffe, because I hear the presidency or protocol said, oh, it wasn't a gaffe. But if you looked at the visage, the face of the president, and when his favorite chair, which is carried everywhere, was offered to Alassane Ouattara to sit on while he sat on a lower chair, you could tell something was not exactly kosher. Something was not going according to plan. And if you thought I only noticed it, people in-house noticed it. People on social media watching noticed it. And the question was that planned? Or was it a gaffe, so to speak? But Malta president arrives for 3-day state visit. 67th Independence Day celebration. Ghana beacon of hope, according to the president. Akufo-Addo set alight. On the back page, German ADB supports establishment of garment factory at Savelugu, and NRSA rolls out speed limit technology mid-year. So the National Road Safety Authority will roll out Traffic Tech, a technology-driven road traffic enforcement initiative, by the end of the second quarter of this year. Now, the automated speed limit enforcement program will be operationalized using cameras that have been mounted at vantage points on the country's roads and highways. And then, President Akufo-Addo has extolled Ghana's democratic credentials, citing the country as a beacon of hope amid failing structures in fellow developing economies. He said although the British granted Ghana its independence, the West African nation had developed on its own democratic values, defying the many failing systems around the sub-region and on the continent to reach new heights of democratic governance. He said democracy, as experienced by the country, was the work of Ghanaians, and that for the past 31 years, Ghana had enjoyed peaceful democratic governance. And he said also, for the over 100 years of British rule, the British did not prepare Ghanaians for democratic governance. But what could have been expected from a colonial power seeking its interest, not yours? I'll take a quick swipe at pages 13, and maybe I'll end at page 13 before we go on the international front. As for Alassane Ouattara saying that Ghana paved the way for Africa, I believe that goes without saying, so I will not belabor the point. But a Ghanaian broadcaster and legal practitioner, Richard Sky, has filed a suit at the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of the Human and Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill, popularly known as the Anti-Gay Bill. Among other reliefs, the plaintiff is asking the court to restrain President Akufo-Addo from giving his assent to the bill for it to become law. In a writ invoking the jurisdiction of the Apex Court to interpret and enforce the Constitution, Mr. Sky is also seeking an order from the court to restrain the Speaker and Clerk of Parliament from presenting the bill to the President for him to give assent to it. He is further seeking an injunction against any attempt to enforce the bill, especially the aspect that criminalizes same-sex relationship. And it's a curious matter, Maxwell. It's a curious matter, that one. Tomorrow, for my blunt thoughts, it's one of the things I'm going to be talking about from different angles. People like Richard Sky, their positionings in the past and their current positionings, and whether there's any dichotomy, he's explained himself, and even people like Sam George, past and present. But what do you make of these stories I've read? So the constitutionality of the anti-gay bill, then Ghana as a beacon of hope, according to the president, and on the back page, the National Road Safety Authority rolling out speed limit technology mid-year. Your take?
Yeah, sure. So our democratic credentials, Ghana being the beacon of hope, yes, I agree that most of us have contributed to this. That's why some of us, during the 67th Independence Day celebration, we had to do a lot of retrospection and introspection. We want to see how far we have come as a country. Those who laid the basis for us to follow what we have all contributed as individuals and where we are now and where we hope to go. It's worth noting that governments and oppositions have all held us to do the best that we can do. The issue is our best practices as a country. We've done our bit and we are getting to where we intend to go to. We have some few lapses that we need to correct. Of course, we are not confident about where we are now, though, because the index, the democratic index, according to research, has fallen to the level we are not expecting it to be, and we expect to do better than we are doing. The Electoral Commission, when it comes to our processes of democracy and election, have not been up as we expect them to be. Yes, the president has said that every time we go to the polls, we do things better than we used to do in the past, and we grow and we become better by the day.
Right.
But the question, at the last time when 8 people were killed during our polls, what have we done about it? Has the president made mention of this thing anywhere in any of his speeches? What has been done to the people who had to shoot people and kill and maim the rest of them? So are we growing by killing 8 people in our election, or we are going back? So for me, in as much as I agree that we've all contributed to what we are experiencing today, Alassane Ouattara has credited us for being pace setters in most of these things. But I think that once we can grow beyond some of these little things like the EC we are experiencing today, who have so many bodyguards guarding her for whatever reasons.
Right. I don't think that is the main issue. What is the thrust of what you're saying? The many bodyguards, that one. But what is the thrust of what you're saying? Because of time.
But we used to know Afarijan. We used to see the former Charlotte Osei. Their consciences were clear. They had nothing to hide. And so they were walking in town freely. But why would all of a sudden our electoral commissioner have 6 military bodyguards walking in town? It means she has something to hide and she's afraid of something. So for me... So
because the person has more bodyguards, the person is doing something foul and has something to hide. Is that the logical reasoning?
How many bodyguards do you have walking in town? Because you don't have anything to hide. So once you are afraid that somebody may...
I am not a public official. Unless even the celebrities, so-called, how many of them walk around with bodyguards?
Yeah, so my point is that, you see, when people, they say your appearances show who you are. So once you come to town and you are so scared about yourself, it means there's something you are hiding and there's something you are afraid of.
Okay.
My point is that the last election we held, This particular issue had to change the result how many times? 6 times. 8 people died. Nothing has been said and done about them. So she's afraid that somebody may maim her. That's why she goes to town with all these bodyguards. So my point is that, yes, in as much as we are saying that we are growing in our democracy and we are the beacon of hope, there are little things here and there that we can watch and grow beyond that, and then we can tout our democratic credentials. Now, about the LGBTQ plus thing, yes, we have said it already. Richie Sky, I want to believe that somebody is pushing him to do whatever he's doing. Yes, of course. He
hasn't come out to say that, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But like I said, tomorrow I'll reflect on some of his thoughts and posts in the past versus now. But of course, people can also, he can explain. He's given an explanation. We'll be fair in analyzing all of those. But he's entitled to his opinion.
I heard Aponyomak the very day the bill was passed in Parliament, specifically mentioning Richie Sky that he can go and test the law in the Supreme Court. Did you hear him say that? Did you hear Aponyomak?
It wasn't shown on air here, but I know he said that.
Yes, he said it. So my point is that if Aponyomak could specifically mention Richie Sky and his group, that he can go test that, and the next day or two, we saw him in the Supreme Court, it only presupposes that it's something somebody has cooked somewhere and is given to him to go and present. And so for me, it's nothing strange to me. That's their modus operandi, and that is the way they wish to go through this time around. And I'm sure the Supreme Court is waiting for them. They are people of conscience, and I'm sure they will do the right thing. That thing hasn't become a law. How then do you go and challenge its constitutionality or otherwise? Of course, he's saying that Parliament should be restrained from sending this bill to the President. The President should also be restrained from signing. The President himself has already indicated to the House that he wasn't going to sign until the court processes are over.
But there's an interesting perspective. Some have said, for example, that there was a challenge to the e-levy at the Supreme Court back in the day. President, hold for me. President Akufo-Addo went on to sign the e-levy. But in this instance, if the court strikes it down, it's going to be well nigh impossible for Parliament, even with 2/3 majority, to go ahead with this, because then the courts would have said it was unconstitutional, unless that could lead to some friction between 2 arms of government, or even 3, because now there seems to be a lack of consensus between the legislature and the executive, and you could then rope in the judiciary. It could be a 3-way fight. I don't know, a wrestling match or something of the sort. I'm not sure, but I guess opinions are opinions, and we'll see how things go. I guess the courts will also take into consideration all the other surrounding issues and matters. But let's go on the international front. Liberian president sets up task force to trace stolen state assets, and Liberian President Joseph Boakai has issued an executive order to identify and recover stolen state assets and prosecute complicit current and former officials under a crackdown on graft launched since his January inauguration. The order will establish a task force that will have the legal mandate and state funding to investigate and retrieve wrongfully acquired government assets and seek the expedition of the suspects involved, the presidency said in a statement. It did not name any suspects, but it's going on this. Would that we could do this in Ghana? You know, I don't care, NDC or MPP. It actually reminds me of, in a way, Peter Alajete leaving office and some furniture. Ghana, Kenya. Our country is funny. Your side is complicit, the other side is complicit. People, if we wanted to crack the whip and do the right thing on these things, I don't know how many of these officials would survive. But Kenyan politician vows fresh challenge to Haiti police deployment. A Kenyan opposition leader said he would launch a fresh court challenge to a plan to send police officers to gang-ravaged Haiti after the 2 countries signed a deal last week intended to fast-track the stalled deployment. And on page 9, where I'll end, also on the international front, Biden-Trump dominates Super Tuesday races. And so if you look at the count, the primary delegate count, Donald Trump has 1,051, while Nikki Haley, who pulled a surprise in Vermont, and also she won in Washington, D.C., has 86. Joe Biden has 1,568, and those uncommitted are 10. So I guess it's smooth sailing for both candidates. It's going to be part 2 of Biden and Trump. And Navalny's widow urges Russians to protest on election day. That's in Russia. Any thoughts, or should I move on to the Ghanaian Times newspaper?
Let's go to the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Yes, of course. I would have made my thoughts known about this Liberia president going after public access.
You can go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So for me, like you said earlier, this thing should not be mentioned. They should not be said about that. Because for you to hold a public office to become a minister or a minister of state, you should be at some level of your life where you can provide some of these things for yourself. You should be, some countries, you should be able to provide your own you should provide residence for yourself, or you should have your own residence to be able to stay and do government work. You should be able to buy your own cars and drive your own cars. Once you are living, you live with it. Like parliamentarians, they were giving loan to purchase their own vehicles. So why not state officials, so that they can also do it when they are going, you have a loan and you pay out. So for people to leave office and to be chased, and for government vehicles and other things, for them to be chased, to be retrieved, it beats my imagination. How? You have come to office, you have come to meet the thing. Right. You leave and you go, and the new government they have to buy. I remember President Akufo-Addo came and said he was not going to buy new vehicles. Before we knew, they moved from Nissan Patrols and then Pajeros, and now they are buying Lexus for all the officers. Plenty of them. So some of these things, and I'm sure that when they are leaving, they also take plenty of them away. And when we can, we'll also be chasing them for it. It doesn't speak well of us as a people. And for me, it's a waste of the taxpayers' money, yes.
Right. Let's quickly get into other papers. At 67th Independence Day in Koforidua, let's build consensus on our values. President admonishes Ghanaians. I'm actually interested. He mentions values, and the LGBTQ bill is also right there. Journalist goes to Supreme Court over LGBTQ plus bill. We've already spoken about that. Appointments Committee vets ministerial nominees, and 4 secessionists jailed 17 years. That's the story I'll look at in the Ghanaian Times, the secessionists. So 4 executive members of the Western Togoland Restoration Front have been sentenced to a total of 17 years imprisonment by the Accra High Court. Now, this was after the court presided over by Justice Mary Mame Ekwe Nyanzu found them guilty on various charges preferred against them. The accused, including a policeman and soldier, were tried on charges of being members of a prohibited organization, summoning meetings of prohibited organizations, attending meetings of a prohibited organization, and making contributions for the benefit of a prohibited organization. And so they were sentenced, but Michael Koku Kwabla Ametonu Gohe, aka Togbe Yesu Eduji, and a founder of the WTRF, was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. The court also imposed a fine of 12,000 cedis on Gohe, and in default, he would serve 1 year imprisonment. You can check out more details of that story in there. The Daily Guide also captures that story. Western Togoland Prime Minister and others jailed 17 years. Of course, we know the late Charles Komi Kujoji, aka Papavi, he has actually met his maker. Would you like to reflect on those before I bring in other stories from the Daily Guide?
Secessionist group, I think that, yes, government should deal with them the way the law prescribes. It's just unfortunate that usually when we get to election year, then we hear a lot more about these secessionist groups and their activities. And then the last time it was out of this that our borders in the Volta region were closed and heavily marked with security men during the elections. I don't know for whatever reason, but we're beginning to think that usually during election year, these things come up. And to put a lot of fear in the voters in the Volta region to prevent them from doing their movements very easily and also affecting our voter turnout in the Volta region. I don't want to believe that it's a subtle way of putting that fear back in us in the Volta region. It should be a genuine thing they are doing. People should be tried, yes. But the question is, how long have they been arrested? Yes, of course, the legal process grinds slowly. But I don't want it to transcend beyond law and order into wanting to bring more soldiers into the Volta region again, because we are approaching an election period that a lot of things that were done in the past would also happen again. That's my only fear, and I pray that it doesn't happen. But all things being equal, once you go against the law, you have to be punished. Yes.
All right, so the other stories. We've overcome economic challenges, Nana-Addo says so. In fact, reading from page 3, he says, fellow Ghanaians, I know that we have gone through difficult economic circumstances, but it is clear that we have overcome the worst and we should be looking forward to better times. If we are to take pride in being Ghanaian, there should be a consensus on the values we hold dear and we should transmit them to every generation. This bit about values gets my attention. But there's also Mahama, NDC boycott Independence Day celebration. Let's unite to build Ghana. Bawumia says so. Let me look at that other story on page 3 and get your responses. So, former President John Dramani Mahama and the opposition NDC made a strong statement by boycotting the 67th Independence celebration yesterday. Instead, Mahama issued a statement from home emphasizing the need for quality leadership, improved governance, and a robust economy. Why did your side boycott something as national as the Independence Day celebration? And what do you think about Akufo-Addo saying we've overcome our economic challenges and that we should stick to our values as a country? Quick thoughts?
Yeah, so Akufo-Addo is speaking from the comfort of his office in the Jubilee House. And so what he sees is what he says. But those of us down here know that we have not come close to overcoming anything, let alone turning the corner, as they say. I'm not sure we have. The situation is still that. We saw one of our parliamentarians, lady, on the floor of Parliament with kenke, with bread, and also with a bag of 5 kg or 4.5 kg rice, talking about the price difference between 2016 and now. And if that is overcoming our economic woes, then I believe that the president is talking in a negative direction. We have not come close anywhere to overcoming them. The macroeconomic indicators are there to guide us. And I'm not sure anybody is proud now as a Ghanaian, the situation we are having. Have we not experienced that depreciation of the CD? We are going over 13 CDs now. So what's the president talking about? What is there? What is new for us to beat our chest about and say that we are doing good? Values, he said, LGBT is not a value. And
that should be your final point in about 30, 40 seconds. We have to go.
It's not a value. Corruption is not a value. Galamsey is not a value. Has he spoken about any of these things in his State of the Nation address? And he's talking about us holding dear to our values. I beg his pardon. He should go back and look at these things and come back and talk to us. I think that the president only throws words at us not understanding or not too sure what he wants to tell us. Maybe somebody just wrote a thing for him to read through. But I'm not sure he has seriously reflected over this. I'm not sure if he did, he would be talking to us about this thing. Because seriously, we are decaying. And everything indicates that we are not doing better than we used to do in the past. And so he should review his notes and come back to us proper.
Maxwell, thank you very much for your time. The last headlines, the Accra Times, of Daily Guides falls a reportage. PNC guru jumps to defend Bagbin. Akufo-Addo was in Parliament to fulfill Article 67 and nothing more. Murtala Mohammed says that the Tamale Central lawmaker. Ablakwa slams Akufo-Addo for lacking compassion. Afram Plains North MP chases government over projects and ensure peace in Boku. Avoca charges Akufo-Addo to avert terrorist infiltration. Maxwell Lokutor is the NDC's parliamentary candidate for South Tone, and he joined us. Max, wonderful day. Now, right before we get into sports, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us to bring you this segment. They're still offering you free prostate screening if you're a man, free fertility screening if you're a woman. Reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrade Anaji State, Tema, Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama and Zama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sports is up next. Do stay. Thank you very much for staying with us. Here we are back in the studio, and we're getting into the big stories. We're going to be talking about everything from the Independence Day celebrations and everything that happened. The NDC, no show, blackout, but a statement from the party. We're going to talk about the National Cathedral and the symbolic what do you say, outdooring of that edifice. We would talk about happenings in Parliament and LGBTQ, all of those on the chopping board as we host the Member of Parliament for South Dai, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamakbo. He joins me in the studio this morning. Roxanne, thanks for coming.
Thank you, my pleasure.
All right, so we're going to make the most of the time, maximize the time with every little bit. But let's start, as always, from your constituency. How's South Dai faring?
We are well. We had our 6th match yesterday. I couldn't attend because of some other pressing national assignments, but I sponsored the children with yogurt. You know, after matching in the sun, they needed to cool off. We did that.
Okay.
We celebrated our 67th year as a state who attained self-rule in 51 and independence, political independence, properly so-called, in 57, and a Republican status in 1960. So here we are. We are still bedeviled with matters that ought not to be bedeviled as a sovereign state, but we share the pride in the fact that these are things that we can continue to remedy as we move along as a state. So congratulations to all of us for attaining 67 years. And we hope that things will get better than they are.
All right.
And so congratulations to especially the GES in my constituency in the districts. They did a very good job in hosting. It was hosted at Peki Blango AP School Park. And it was important that a lot of people showed up to participate in the event. So congratulations to all of us. And good morning to Peki Palikpe Vetongo.
All right. Let's quickly talk about Independence Day.
Yeah.
The former president, John Dramani Mahama, his wife, major figures in the NDC, you were not there. You were not in Akufo-Addo. What informed that decision?
Now, you must understand how state protocol works. If I were you, I would rather be asking whether state protocol invited them. You cannot just get up and attend such an event without the proper invitations. Even
wait, hold. Pause for me.
No.
You're saying...
No, I am
because
saying...
in the past, we know former presidents and all that.
Yes.
Yes, state protocol. But you're saying there was no such communication, and from your end too...
No, I am saying you put the question directly that there was no show.
Right.
I wasn't there. I have no idea. But I'm saying that you rather should be asking whether they were invited, because anytime they invite them to such national assignment, they attend. I mean, my flag bearer, the former president, was in Parliament just 2 weeks ago when the president came to present his State of the Nation's address, which we are still debating in Parliament.
He's not always been there. He's not always been there.
I said just 2 weeks ago. He attends a lot of national events.
Right.
When he's invited, you see, by the nature of the protocols, he doesn't attend events alone. There are certain protocols that must be organized for him to ensure his effective participation in the program. And so the invitation will come and those protocols will be created. You can't just sit in a vehicle and drive yourself to Akufo-Addo and get down out of the vehicle, and because you are president, you are ex-president, they should find you a seat. No, the protocols must be properly done. So I don't know whether state protocol didn't invite him. Otherwise, why not? I mean, this is a celebration of our sovereignty. So, but I suspect that perhaps the invitation may not have come. Yes, I suspect so. So, I don't want us to.
But don't you think that took away something from the the beauty?
No, at all.
Because we've always prided ourselves on that sort of ability to unite, regardless of where we are, whether on religious grounds, social grounds, political, economic grounds, to still
shelve the differences.
Show face.
Yes, we shelve the differences and do things in the greater national interest. And I'll just give you an example that just 2 weeks ago, he was in Parliament. He came, he was invited, he came to listen quietly to the president speak or give his message on the State of the Nation address. And I know for a fact that he was invited to that event. So he came, he attended, he honored it. So let's find out whether he was invited or not. And that being the case, I think that is a non-starter. It's a non-issue.
From where you sit, so your suspicion is that the president may not have been invited formally.
Yes.
The right processes with protocol.
Yes.
That's where you sit.
That's my suspicion.
That's
otherwise JM would have been there. Why not?
But you followed. Even though you were not, you followed.
I followed.
What did you make of it? I mean, there are so many different angles to it. The president speaking on the economy, like the Daily Graphic captures today, said we had overcome our economic challenges. In fact, quoting him, he says, "Fellow Ghanaians, I know that we have gone through difficult economic circumstances, but it is clear that we have overcome the worst and we should be looking forward to better times." He then adds, "If we are to take pride in being Ghanaian, there should be a consensus on the values we hold dear and we should transmit them to every generation." So he says, basically repeating that we have turned the corner, economically speaking. And then he talks about values. And that later will bring in the LGBTQ conversation. But what did you make of that? And I don't know whether you saw, many observed also that the president's favorite chair or seat was offered to Alassane Ouattara. And the expression on the president's face may not have, we don't know whether it was a gaffe or it was planned. But what did you make fully of the president at the Independence Day celebrations and his rhetoric?
Yes, one, that there appears to be a sharp difference between the message he gave to the nation 2 weeks ago on the state of affairs, where he admitted that we are in difficult times and that he hopes that we'll get out of the woods soon. He said so. Indeed, given the state of affairs, unemployment last year was 13.4%. Now it is 14.7%. That should tell you that things are deteriorating. We are actually not out of the woods. We haven't turned any corner. So if 2 weeks after the president in delivering his Independence Day speech or anniversary speech will turn 360 and say that we are out of the woods, things are getting better, and that we look forward, we become a beacon of hope. We are no longer a beacon of hope. We have become a beacon of disillusionment to a lot of people.
We have become a beacon of disillusionment
to a lot of people. You know, no country, a lot of countries no longer look up to us. You know, so.
But that's interesting. Pardon my coming in again, because I think Alassane Ouattara talks about that. In fact, he hailed Akufo-Addo's leadership. He said Ghana had paved the way for Africa. I believe that we all know. But he hailed Akufo-Addo's leadership, talking about the very same thing.
For having done what? For having done what? Akufo-Addo came into office with our cocoa production hovering around 800,000 metric tons. Today we are doing 450,000 metric tons. So what exactly was Alassane Ouattara talking about? In any case, won't you? When you visit a friend, he gives you his presidential chair, won't you? You speak good things about him. And so for Alassane Ouattara to hail his friend and say that he's the best thing that's ever happened to the Republic is neither here nor there. The reality is that we are in the doldrums.
We're in the doldrums. Yeah. And let me apologize to those who are trying to get us on social media who are not yet getting that connection. I hear there are some technical issues. I have checked, and we're trying to remedy them so that you can watch the feed live on Facebook. But on the bit about values, and maybe we should let that feed into LGBTQ. But before we get there, values. If I asked you, I struggle. If I asked you, what are the values that characterize the Ghanaian? What would you say?
The Ghanaian value is friendship, respect for authority, courtesies, privileges extended to others, and above all, oneness. You don't see that any longer. We don't have hope, even expecting those things to be perpetuated. People who want to do things according to their whims and caprices. Where our regard for rule of law has been largely thrown to the dogs. Nothing happens properly these days. There's total disregard for authority and orderliness of things as underpinning in law and in politics and in our culture and religion. People insult and all that. So, like I said, we are a nation in disarray. We need another leader to come and put us together. So I don't know what sort of values the president will want to speak about.
Speaking of those values, of course, honesty, decency, and all of that. If you contemplate these, you might want to look at Parliament itself and other places and find out whether we have those. There have been exposés talking about the rot in different spheres of our national life, including...
In fact, in all facets.
Exactly.
Yeah, in all facets.
Including the three arms of government.
Of course.
You know, so these values, I do not know how they reflect. But let's then segue into, since we're talking of values, the LGBTQ conversation. Sound conversations, sound arguments from both sides. You are one of the proponents of the bill.
Yes.
Now it's gone before the president. He's already expressed his view in those three previous bills in respect of private members' bills coming to him, especially when they're going to bring some sort of draw on the consolidated fund or the public purse. Then you have this instance, because it becomes rather convoluted, complex. One, there had been signals from the AG, then from Afenyo-Markin, that certain angles. Afenyo-Markin, though, I felt he made sense in some way that custodial sentences may not necessarily, you are a lawyer, not just a lawmaker, may not necessarily serve the cause, because our prisons are bursting at their seams and all of that. So could we have found an alternative? But basically, the law, you have this bill going to the president a day before there is a suit in court. He talks about the fact that there is some matter at the Supreme Court criticizing it. You've heard his rhetoric and everything. What do you make of the bill? Are we doing the right thing? And if we are, do you feel the president will give his assent to it now that he's saying the Supreme Court must rule on it before you do?
Okay.
Or before he does?
Now, there's a certain compulsion on the president, obligated under law, to assent to a bill submitted to him within a certain time limit. And with your permission, if time being on our side, let me read quickly what the Constitution says. Article 106 of the Constitution states this, particularly at Clause 8. Where the president refuses to assent to a bill, all right, he shall within 14 days after the refusal, A, state in a memorandum to the Speaker any specific provisions of the bill which in his opinion should be reconsidered by Parliament, including his recommendation for amendments, if any. Or B, inform the Speaker that he has referred the bill to the Council of State for consideration and comment under Article 90 of this Constitution. Now, what this says is that once a bill is properly remitted from the office of the Speaker through the clerk to Parliament to the office of the President, time begins to tick. So he cannot abandon the bill in abeyance and do whatever suits his whims and caprices. Now, the Constitution is very clear that if you decide to veto the bill, you must within 14 days after that decision explain to Parliament why. Especially if you are minded to have portions of the bill amended, you have to prefer those amendments with explanatory memorandum. That's the first option. The second option is, if you are minded as the president to refer the bill to the Council of State for further consideration, you must inform Parliament that you have done that. The Council of State also within 30 days upon that referral must get back to the president with the feedback on the bill. and the president will remit that to Parliament, and Parliament will consider it under Article 90. The procedure is very clear there. And when that is done, and the bill is remitted back to the presidency after 2/3 approval from Parliament, the president is mandated within 30 days to assent to it.
Right.
So all these strictures and timelines are properly captured in the Constitution. Now, you have a president who, before a suit is even actioning in the Supreme Court, he has the privilege to speak to it and injuncts himself that because of the anticipated suit, I will stay my hand whenever a bill that is yet to reach my index, whenever it comes, I'll stay my hands. And that, I think...
In effect, when no one knew about such a suit, because the suit was dated the 5th and the president was
exactly
on the 4th.
So that conduct in itself, it's unconstitutional.
The conduct of the president
yes,
is unconstitutional.
that he will stay his hands and abide the outcome of the Supreme Court decision, whether it takes 2 years or 3 years, is in itself unconstitutional, because that is not the law.
So you mean the president erred?
He erred with those comments.
On the face of the law?
Yes. In fact, in respect of other private members' bills that have been passed by Parliament, properly remitted to him, and he kept it from August until in December, when the Constitution says that if you disagree with any portion or portions of the bill, do so within 14 days. It took him 6 months to write a long memo to Speaker, supposedly explaining giving reasons of his disapproval of or his decision to veto those bills. And that is also in itself unconstitutional.
But let's talk about the president. He's made mention of the fact that this has not even come to his desk. A few days ago, he mentioned that this had not even come before him yet. So, I mean, even the countdown, the 2-week period within which, if it hadn't hit his desk, how would you expect him to even start working?
Good. That is why the president ought not to have spoken in such manner. You don't speak about a bill that you are yet to see passed by Parliament. The bill hasn't touched your desk. So the presumption is that you don't know the content. So you don't speak ill about it. A suit is yet to be actioned in the Supreme Court. You don't know the content. You don't even know the reliefs. So you don't speak about it. So for the president to do that, it appears that the whole thing was choreographed. So get the finance ministry to issue a statement that has no author behind it. Then you get the president to meet the diplomatic community and gives them assurance and says that there's an anticipated writ of action against the bill. When that is done, I will stay my hand, even though the bill is yet to come to me. So the conduct of the president is not in accord with our rule of law and constitutionalism, because there's a presumption of regularity for the actions of the president until a court of law says otherwise. So that is why, for instance, when the president is elected, and that election is called into question via a petition in the Supreme Court, all his actions are presumed regular until the court says that you are removed from office. Nobody can question his actions so far as those actions were in consonance with the Constitution. In the same way, the president told us that even though 2 years ago, that even though e-levy has been passed and the minority who went to court, the court action does not stay in his hands. Go and check the relief that we asked. We asked for for an injunction.
The bill had been passed.
Yes.
The matter was taken to court. Yes. And he signed off on
Yes, and that is regular in law. Because you see, you cannot injunct a constitutional officer from performing his functions of office. It's as though I go to court, then I go to court against the Chief Justice, and I'm questioning certain things about the Chief Justice. Then I pray for an injunction that the Chief Justice must not perform the functions of her office until such time that the suit is determined on its merits. You cannot do that. It may be a prayer before the court, but no court will grant you an interim injunction staying in the hands of the Chief Justice from performing her constitutional duties. There's a presumption of regularity, which is very strong in our legal system.
So you feel to fulfill the burden of responsibility, the president, once it hit his desk, because at the time he said it hadn't hit his desk, should have signed off on it, or should have referred it to the Council of State, regardless of whatever issues may have come up in court.
Exactly. Because the court orders, whatever they may be, will be forward looking. We will not reach back into time. That is why, as we speak, he himself said that whatever decision the Supreme Court will come to in the e-levy case, they are capable of being compensated. They are capable of being they are accounting for how much has been collected under the e-levy. And that is how the law operates. So you see, the danger with what the president has done is that when the bill finally lands, or is the which I suspect will be today or tomorrow, he will refuse to sign.
That's your suspicion?
That's that is not my suspicion. That is all he has said. He will refuse to sign, pretending that there's a Supreme Court decision, outcome of which he awaits, putting Parliament in a certain state of abeyance, because Parliament cannot act, Parliament cannot proceed, all right, to action
unless he refuses.
Unless Article 106(8) is sprung into life, remitting the bill back to Parliament. And you cannot also stay Parliament's hand in that manner.
And if it doesn't come back to Parliament, you can't go ahead and
we can't go ahead. We can't take any. Thank you.
To push the bill
exactly,
and make it an act.
Because the constitutional prerequisites in Article 106(8) will have to be action, will have to be sprung into life.
Do you think there is some grand scheme, some plan to get us to this point so that you are in the middle and you can't proceed? And here's why I say this. Afenyo Markin spoke, the majority leader, on the back of this, and actually hinted that some specific person should take the matter to court. And that has happened. It's been taken to the Supreme Court. We've heard of the rhetoric of the Attorney General on this matter, and now we've heard Mr. President. Do you think it is simply a point of the NPP being, of course, led by the President, being unwilling to actually pass this bill? So in Parliament, they appear to be for it, but they know that you can't get past this hurdle.
Let me make this point. The Attorney General had always been part of the preliminary considerations of this bill, even before the committee. They participated in it fully. In fact, there's an Attorney General's opinion on some portions of the bill originally submitted to Parliament. I can share that with you. So the input of the Attorney General's office into this legislation was so massive. Now, I have already mentioned that the whole
scheme... But the Attorney General has had his differences on the bill, his own reactions.
But the point I'm making to you today, this morning, is that the Attorney General is on record to have shared an opinion on this bill as it was originally laid in Parliament. And that opinion has had substantial positive effect on the amendments that were preferred. So their input has such a major play on the outcome of the bill. But I've already made the point that the whole the whole thing appears to be a grand scheme choreographed properly.
Grand scheme choreographed. A grand scheme choreographed. By whom?
Now,
by whom?
By government or by government actors. Get the majority leader to frustrate us on the floor. Springs an amendment at the second consideration, 13 of them, none succeeded. Then at the third reading, frustrate us. Eventually we did the third reading, hold a press conference after that, and says that private citizens should be encouraged to go and test the law. You know, that's encouraging agents provocateurs to go and stampede us in the court. Then you get Minister of Finance to issue a very nebulous statement where...
I was about to get to
that. Where in one breath they say that we stand the danger of losing certain funding that are outstanding in our credit.
3.8 billion.
Hold on, in our credit. Then at the tail end of their so-called statement, they are rather making recommendations to the president that, look, President, if this bill passes, then you need to put in place certain structures by engaging conservatives, religious leaders, CSOs, so that we can restructure our local financial system to become robust, to be able to withstand the financial shocks that we will suffer. Did you read that?
Right.
Good. So the finance ministry itself was in a state of confusion writing that statement. Then that gingered the president to now meet the diplomatic community and say that I'm giving you assurance that we will not backslide in our human rights record and regard for human rights. Which human rights? Human rights that 9 persons died under his watch and there's no inquiry into any? All rights are rights. And all lives are of equal importance to all of us. Then they get Richard Sky to go to the Supreme Court and go and check the reliefs he's asking for. Apart from the 8th relief, which is to get the Supreme Court to bar the operation of the law that criminalizes same-sex relationships. That is what Richard Sky is asking. All the others is in respect of throw this one in as red herring. How do you question Parliament in passing a legislation when on the same day we passed 2 other legislations for the state? You recall the new Ghana anti-doping law? Mm-hmm. It was passed the same day, and the certificate of urgency. The same number of members of Parliament. So I wish that they can appreciate the fact that Yolin Kulendi JSC in the Abdullahi versus Attorney General matter held and distinguished between a deliberative quorum in Parliament and a decisional quorum in Parliament. I hope that they can avert their mind to that. And that quorum is not simply quorum qua quorum.
Quorum for the sake of quorum.
Yes. Deliberative quorum is different from decisional quorum. But they are in Supreme Court challenging the fact that we didn't have quorum to pass the law. And again, the Constitution is very clear regarding the matter concerning a bill that will impose a charge on the consolidated fund on the public purse. The Supreme Court says, in the opinion of the person presiding. How do you challenge the opinion of the person presiding? You can only challenge that opinion was unconstitutional because it was expressed by someone other than the person presiding. Otherwise, there's no avenue to look at the constitutionality of that opinion as expressed. Because that's all that the Constitution said. There's nothing ambiguous about in the opinion of the person presiding. If it says that this bill will not occasion a charge on the public purse, that's it. That test, that roadblock is cleared. If it is expressed by the clerk to Parliament, expressed by a member of Parliament, expressed by any other officer of Parliament, then you can say that no, the law, the Constitution says it has to come from the member, the member presiding. And this is the Speaker cleared.
So let me tell you.
But we'll see how these things pan out.
So let me ask you now. There is some state of flux. We are in limbo.
Yeah.
We don't know what the next step will be. But what do you surmise? What do you think? What do you conjecture the Supreme Court will do on a matter like this? You've worked on the fine print as far as the technical aspects, the law is concerned. So you believe in this bill, you are sticking to the tenets of the law. And that is exactly what the Supreme Court is supposed to test, the constitutionality of what you've done. Do you think it will pass the test before the Supreme Court?
It won't. Because You
don't think it will pass the test before the Supreme Court? Or you mean...
No, the action will fail.
The action brought by Richard Sky?
Yes, and let me show you why. Yes, let me show you why.
Okay.
Go to Article 106.11. It says, without prejudice to the power of Parliament to postpone the operation of a law, a bill shall not become law until it has been duly passed and assented to in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution, and shall not come into force unless it has been published in the Gazette. So what is before what Richard Sky has proceeded against in the Supreme Court is actually work in progress.
Okay.
It's Parliament's act in progress. Under Article 2.1 A and B, you can proceed to the Supreme Court to challenge the constitutionality of an act of parliament or an enactment passed by parliament as being unconstitutional, stating all your grounds.
Right.
Or in B, an act that parliament has performed a certain function, and that function threatens the breach of the constitution or actually threatens or actually breach the constitution. So which act do you speak of? The fact that parliament has passed a law, passed a bill into a law, it's no law yet.
So from where you sit, based on this technicality, you feel you've been categorical.
Yeah.
Are you still going to be that categorical and say that it will fail? You are not a justice.
It will fail because the law is very clear.
You are not the justice of the Supreme Court.
Hold on.
The beauty about the technicality of the law is that you can have a Lord Denning and a Lord.
Yes.
You can have two different.
Yes. Lord Atkin and all. They can
look at it.
Lord
and
Gov.
Divergent opinions. Right.
Yes.
You sit here as a lawyer and you say this, but the justices of the Supreme Court can differ in opinion.
That's why it's the
law.
To say
categorically that it will fail.
That's the beauty of the law. I can sit here and speak in that manner. If they disagree with my position, that's all fair. But let me ground my position again on law. Last year, Dr. Amanda Audrey actually proceeded to the Supreme Court.
Professor Gachepo? Is that?
No. Okay. Amanda Audrey, there's another lady.
Okay.
She was among those who submitted the over 200 memoranda against the bill. When we invited memoranda last year and we interrogated them, she was among them. She proceeded to the Supreme Court to actually ask the Supreme Court to injunct Parliament from proceeding to consider the bill. And the Supreme Court said, a bill before a Parliament cannot be stopped from performing its functions. All right? A bill is not a law that the Supreme Court can be asked to pronounce on. So already there's a Supreme Court decision in place that says that a bill is not a law that Supreme Court can be asked to pronounce on. All right? So I am basing my argument on a decision given by the court itself just last year. Not 2 years ago, not 5 years ago, just last year. So as we speak, the bill is a bill. It's not received assent within the remit of Article 108(11). It's not being gazetted. Indeed, Parliament can actually, after all this, suspend the operation of the law, like we did in, I think, the VAT value added tax and the luxury tax. You remember? Right. We passed the law, we suspended it. In fact, the right to information law, when we passed it, we suspended it for a year because the fiscal impact analysis determined that we would need about 700 million Ghana cedis to be able to implement it in the first year. We didn't have that money. So we delayed this operation and allowed government to find the money before that institution was set in motion.
So again, you expect the court, the Supreme Court,
to throw this away,
to throw Richard Sky's suit
in limine, ab initio.
Away,
ab initio,
because it doesn't have a grounding in the law.
The course of action is premature, and all these it is part of the calculated in the scheme of this, part of the calculated steps to frustrate Parliament. No wonder the president.
Why do you think there would be that calculated attempt? Is it because of what the finance ministry said about our precarious economic situation and falling on the IMF, the World Bank, the Bretton Woods
at all? But because of the requirements in 106, which is that
what
106.8, which is that the president must necessarily act on a bill when there's no such distractions. Now he says that there's an action in the Supreme Court, so I am unable to act. So if he's unable to act, Parliament is also unable to act.
Let me ask you this, though. If the Supreme Court, contrary to what you think, if it jettisons this bill, so to speak, and says, Mr. President, based on the law and what we see, it may have X or Y negative impact, and so don't sign it, right? Or it gives its decision, its ruling, which points to the fact that it is not encouraging the president to sign it. What then will Parliament do? Because this then could create some sort of conundrum for the three arms of government. Parliament has proposed a bill. The executive has refused to sign it, which in a way contravenes the law, but he's within his limits. He says it's before court, which it is before court. And if the court says it is unconstitutional, Parliament's hands are tied, even with your 2/3. And even there, with the 2/3, do you think you will get it you don't have 2/3. You will need majority members and NPP members to join you. Do you think you will get that? And even if you could get that, if the Supreme Court says no, there's nothing you can do, can you?
Supreme Court will say no to what? A bill? Supreme Court can say that a person... Hold on. Let me give you an analogy. Supreme Court can say that a person cannot come to court to sue on a matter he disagrees with. That will be the converse side of that decision. It means that Parliament cannot function. Parliament cannot do its work. Because Parliament functions primarily by passing bills into law. Lawmaking function is the primus inter pares of all parliamentary functions. That's the core function of Parliament. So Supreme Court will say that Parliament cannot pass bills into laws?
No, but it is not saying that. It is saying that in this specific instance, what bill you have passed is unconstitutional. That's the test.
No bill has been passed. No bill has been passed into law yet. That's the fundamental point I'm making. So it is premature. I am not saying the court cannot make pronouncement on the constitutionality of a law passed by Parliament.
But it's not become a law yet.
Yes. So the food is not yet cooked. It's cooking. It's not yet cooked.
In other words, what you're saying is the president can go ahead and give his assent to this.
Which he has
Yes. Which he has to?
Which he has to. Which I will be suing. As soon as we remit this to his office, time will begin to count. If after 14 days he doesn't exercise that, I am going back to the Supreme Court to compel him to perform his constitutional function.
You will sue the president?
I will sue.
To compel him to the constitutional requirement.
Yes, because his conduct in not assenting to the bill within the requirements of Article 106(8) is unconstitutional.
All right.
Within the time strictures.
So let's assume it got to the president's desk and he signed it.
Yes.
Then there would be cause for someone to take it out because then it would have been
it will be gazetted.
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. As a matter of course. Yes.
As a matter of course.
Yes.
Are gone through.
Yeah.
Then there would be cause for someone to take it out at the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And as of now, there is no cause.
It's premature. No cause.
So you're basically saying then that Richard Sky's suit could be thrown out for now.
Yes.
Could.
Yes.
And I'm saying could. Carefully.
Just like they did to Amanda Audrey.
For now.
Yeah.
And yet, if the president gave us assent to it, he could go back to court. And that would be legitimate.
Fantastic.
Right. And then we could look at the constitutional requirements and whether it met those.
In fact, I was expecting Dr. Amanda Audrey my expectations are that it's rather Dr. Amanda Audrey would have gone back if we had completed the processes of this legislation. She would then go and reactivate her suit, because the initial suit was in respect of the bill. Now it will be in respect of the law properly so called. So he will be actioning based on certain grounds regarding constitutionality or otherwise.
I see. Well, I don't want to be in your shoes right now as the three arms of government. This has thrown quite a cog in the wheel of
our democratic governance process.
Yeah, because Parliament proposes, executive refuses to sign, cites the judiciary. The judiciary is now, all eyes are on the judiciary. Whatever it says, then there will be back and forth. But so eventually, if it becomes law and the judiciary says it is unconstitutional, what then happens? Let's look at all the angles.
It will be struck down as unconstitutional. That's what it means.
And then your hands are tied in Parliament.
Why? We can reintroduce it.
Reintroduce it in a different form?
Which different form? That is Parliament. And mind you, this is private members' bill. This is not a bill coming from the state. This is not a public bill. Look, people should not underrate our resolve in this matter. This matter is not ending today at all. God rules in the affairs of men, and we are doing the law's work.
Do you have the support of the majority in this we that you talk about? This we, is
99% of Ghanaians are in support of this legislation. And as the elected representative of the people of South Dine and my other colleagues, look, at the second, when it comes to that vote, hold on. Yes. When it comes to that vote, let me give you the evidence.
Especially if it's secret.
Hold on. Let me give you the evidence. At the second reading, when we debated the principles of this bill, all 275 members of parliament voted in support.
I am telling you that if it comes to a vote, yes, the 2/3 you need,
we'll get it.
Hold it. If it comes to a vote,
yes,
and if this is a secret ballot,
why should it be a secret ballot?
Where no one gets to know that
why should it be a secret
voted
ballot?
In this way, you could be in for a shock.
We'll vote openly. Every single MP will show his vote.
But you don't determine that. The speaker will
determine that. A member, I will move a motion that this vote will not be taken by secret ballot.
It will be up to the speaker to take
exactly,
or not.
And I'll give cogent.
Then I'll can strike that down. He can.
I agree, but I'll give cogent reasons why this vote must be taken at an open vote.
Yeah, the speaker can still decide.
I agree, but I'm telling you that option is available to me as a co-sponsor of the bill.
So my question then is, if it goes into that secret ballot, where no one knows that, because we feel that some members of parliament had stuff to say, but they wouldn't say it because of fear of victimization. Though by and large, most of you are in support of the bill. But I'm saying when it gets to a secret ballot, you need 2/3 of the 275. Are you confident that even in a secret ballot,
I am more than confident.
2/3.
We'll get nearly 275. Nearly. If there's anybody who may not want to do this, maybe a couple. Every single member of parliament is in support. Disregard comments that some members of parliament are not in support. Every single one of them are in support by conduct, by deed. It is some other persons who think that, and if you ask for their names, I don't even know. They are unable to mention any member of parliament who is openly against this bill, whether outside or on the floor. Akufo-Addo Maki himself has placed it on record that he is for the bill. His issue is in respect of some of the sentencing regime. That's all. So he himself will be voting for this.
All right. But let's look at this. There's also the element of purported hypocrisy, right? If this had come up in a time when the NDC was in power, IMF program being executed, IMF funded or guided program, it's not exactly easy, is it, to do something like this? Looking at Uganda's law may be draconian, but what the World Bank has done to them, so to speak. And I'm not saying that cede your culture or your values because of money, but I'm saying looking at the consequences, the effects. We've heard from Virginia Palmer, the American ambassador, on what the consequences could be for trade and business and money coming into Ghana, which the finance ministry elaborated on. But if it had been the NDC in power, do you feel you would be as persistent, insistent as you are being now? In fact, you may have seen a video of your colleague as well, my good friend Sam George, back in the day before 2016, and what he said about LGBTQ. Maybe his positioning was not as hard as it is now. It was a non-issue for him then. Why now? Is it because there's another party in power?
Now, I feel slighted by your question, but that's from you as a journalist.
My apologies if it slights you, but it's a concern.
Because you assume that the vim, the exuberance, the commitment that I display in respect of this matter would have been different than the NDC. No, at all. And the views and the interests of the NDC aligns always with the views of this country. Look, there's another lie that when we pass this legislation and make it effective, there's some IMF problems, financial difficulties that we face globally. That's a big concoction and fabrication. Look, we have Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tunisia, Tanzania, the Gambia, Togo, Somalia, South Sudan, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Mauritania. Morocco, Namibia, Liberia, Libya, Malawi, Guinea, Kenya, Eritrea, Eswatini, Ethiopia, Chad, Comoros, Islands, Egypt, Algeria, Burundi, Cameroon. Being countries that have anti-LGBT legislations in place.
Not all of them are executing an IMF program.
Hold on. The IMF deals with them. The IMF is not a sovereign state. The IMF is a bank that is into profit-making loans and gives profit-making loans to people and entities and nations. The money we've taken from IMF will be paying interest on it. So the IMF cannot purport. They claim there is an IMF policy. It's not an IMF regulation. Where in the document, the facility document that we signed with the IMF, they said that they will not grant us the facility if we have an anti-LGBT legislation in place as a sovereign people. There's none. So people, are.
There are fundamental.
You've
tenets.
asked the question.
I get you, but I have to clarify. While it is not anywhere that you must support LGBTQ before we can issue these sums of money, there are basics when it comes to human rights. As far as these institutions are concerned, when the World Bank, the Indian head was referring to Uganda and all of that, that came up. It is sine qua non, without which not of international practice, is it not?
Which international
human rights?
Which international
human rights?
Which human rights? Let me ask you. Do you know the difference between tobacco and marijuana?
You tell me.
Okay.
Since
they both grow in the wild.
Right.
They are both natural vegetative plants. This country says you can smoke tobacco subject to the health consequences. All right? So people are free to smoke cigarettes at their own peril.
Yeah, but on the boxes, like we have in Ghana,
exactly.
tell you the consequences
exactly. So I'm saying that this country has allowed people to smoke tobacco. That's their freedom. That's their choice. I mean, it's at the peril of your life. But this same country has refused persons from smoking marijuana. Why? What is in marijuana that the nation must prevent people from smoking? Because of the adverse health consequences on the public health. The state, in its own analysis.
Are you talking of Ghana or other parts?
Ghana. I just mentioned Ghana. I said the nation has prevented people from smoking marijuana freely. Is it not people's right?
There are medicinal,
Thank you.
Industrial
that is more adverse. No, that is more adverse on their health than tobacco. So the state says, I will allow you to smoke tobacco that grows in the wild, but I will not allow you to smoke marijuana that also grows in the wild. Don't marijuana smokers have the right to assert under law? So freedoms are not absolute. Freedoms are subject to other freedoms and rights. So let nobody tell you that this law is against the rights of people. It is not against anybody's rights.
So someone would say what I do in my bedroom, and I don't want to say I'm playing devil's advocate, but I want to look at all angles to this conversation. For those who say, I'm in my bedroom doing what I please, you are in your bedroom doing whatever you please. Why should you criminalize what I do? Is it merely because of the indoctrination factor? What is it?
Can I say this? What you do in your bedroom will come after you if it's unlawful. When the law gets you, the law will deal with you.
Right.
That is why when you go and steal and you are not caught, you walk freely. When you go and smoke marijuana and you are not caught, you think you are high, you are fine. But when the law gets you, they will deal with you because it's a prescribed conduct. So we are saying that...
They say the 11th commandment. Do you know what's the 11th commandment?
No, I have no idea.
Don't get caught.
Thank you. So if you do what the law prescribes in your bedroom, that's you.
Right.
But when the law gets you, the law will deal with you.
Well, this is an interesting conversation, and we'll have to move on to other issues like the National Cathedral, among others. But so, in conclusion, you feel eventually we shall see this become a law within this 8th Parliament.
It would.
It will become a law.
It will.
Before election 2024.
It will. Look,
And if it doesn't, do you think it would have consequences for the MPP?
Well, that's up to the generality of the people to decide. You know, whether or not it becomes a law, there's already a consequence. And let me put this in another context. There's a book by Professor Uno called Sons of Sorrow. Professor Uno, and he painted his persona in that book, and you know, this is like a chameleon feces.
What?
Yes.
The fecal matter of a chameleon.
Yes. Professor Uno uses it as a metaphor in that book. This LGBT bill is a chameleon feces for the president. It won't go away.
Are you pushing this? I mean, you know the president is in a tight spot, and it's like the screw, and you keep tightening.
He has put himself in that problem.
You enjoy the president's pain?
I don't enjoy his pain at all. Because if by conduct you attract problems to yourself, that's your own doing.
But how did he attract this?
When he traveled to London and he answered questions, he said that it was bound to happen. People took him to task for that. Now he added that if there will be any regulation, any law dealing with it, that's up to Parliament to do. Now Parliament has taken a decision, and you want to stampede us to move away from that? He can't do that. The president cannot be dictating to Parliament now. We will not tolerate that. We are co-equal arms of government.
Yes, but you should be working together. There are separations.
He should be working.
Separation of powers.
Exactly, but there are checks and balances.
Yeah, the Baron de Montesquieu.
So we'll balance him, we'll check him.
I see.
He can exercise his powers, but we'll check the exercise of that power.
So you feel the
judiciary
is becoming overbearing, overweening in exercising his power.
The judiciary cannot even dictate to the president how he should exercise his veto. But in the exercise of that veto, it is subject to other checks and balances from Parliament. Article 106 again contains that. And we exercise our right under the Constitution. I've told you this matter. People should not underrate our resolve. We, the sponsors especially.
Okay. Let's talk about the National Cathedral. Yesterday, there was that symbolic commissioning of the National Cathedral, which should have been commissioned yesterday anyway, per what we had been told. It didn't happen, but was that necessary to go there? Samuel Okudzeto and others, you had an altercation with the military, you had to be moved elsewhere, you did that. Was that necessary? Everyone knows it's the cathedral.
It is.
The cathedral is not cathedraling.
It is. It's necessary to bring back attention to that scandalous project in the name of the Almighty God. We have spent in excess of 400 million Ghana cedis, and we have nothing to show for that. That is the scandal. That is a scandal that every day we must remind the people that this government has wrought on us. And it's rather a decommissioning. That project has been decommissioned.
It's been decommissioned.
It's been decommissioned. It's been decommissioned. And we did that decommissioning yesterday.
Was it necessary, though?
It was. It was. Look, they do not mean to do this project. They are not committed to it.
How?
It was a grand.
How do you mean?
They are not committed to it.
They relocated all of these,
the president,
even including judges.
They are not committed.
Institutions
I use the word commitment as defined by the English language. Commitment. Commitment means simply that. If you're not committed to a project, don't start it. At least, even if you cannot complete, let's see some semblance of progress.
But you've been opposed to it every step of the way.
But they've had their way every step of the way. They've had their way.
Opposed it in Parliament every way.
We did it. Look, let me tell you.
Denigrated the project.
Let me tell you the genesis of the opposition to this project. It started from my senior Bright Akwete. Long ago, when he sued, challenging the destruction of the judges' homes for this project. He was of the opinion that this project could have been relocated to another place in Accra or outskirts of Accra to serve as a growth pool that is capable of attracting other projects, other investments, hotels, resorts, other investments. This is supposed to be a growth pool. You don't cite this in the center of the city where you have land problems.
Right.
Why do you have to destroy homes of judges in order to build this? So
what is your alternative? I've spoken to different members of the NDC. Some would propose that it be used for this or that. What is your alternative?
I have no idea at all.
Okay, so I spoke to Yusuf Suleimana, Bole Bamboy MD. He said, I mean, there have been thoughts about building another hospital facility there linked to the Greater Accra Regional Hospital because it's in close proximity. It could be another arm. Some have said it could be a governance institute, leadership and all of that training, a school, whatever, or a university or something of the sort. What do you think?
We need a national church of this nature. But in my opinion, if we don't have the resources...
Did you just say we need a national church of this nature, cathedral?
Yes.
But
what? I mean, as a nation, we don't have a thing like this. So for me, whether it's coming from NDC, ideas coming from the NDC or not, I think it's a project we can have. It's part of our infrastructure, stock improvement. But the location is what I have a problem with. And the fact that we are not committed to it. All the highfalutin sounding...
This sounds a bit confusing. We need, you're basically saying we need a national cathedral.
Yes.
But not where it was situated.
Yes, it's always been my position that, yes, the idea is good, but the grievances people have is that because we are moving to an economic meltdown, it's not necessary.
Okay, so financial, economic.
Exactly.
We shouldn't be doing it at a time.
At this hour.
Right.
At this hour. But it's something that if we have it, if we have the wherewithal to support it, it's good to have.
So looking at the sums of money involved, you would have still gone for the project?
Looking at the sums of monies involved, we should have seen a structure up, even if it's not completed. Something to represent how much is.
No, but I'm saying, if we're going to have such a project and looking at the cost involved, whether it's where it is or some other place, would you go for that?
Yes, of course. If we are capable.
If you're capable.
Yes, I say this from my heart. All right.
Okay, the very final bit.
But we borrow money from people. We can't pay. And we are doing this.
Okay, so cost factor and where it was situated.
Yes.
And the fact that financially we are not in the best of situations.
You see, between Dodowa and Aburu area, there have been a beautiful spot for this.
Yeah, you would look at the commercial activity and whether... there are so many dynamics to look at. But before you go, I just want you to look at this. Accra 2023, the All Africa Games, is happening. The University of Ghana Stadium, how much went in there? $34 million. Botiman Sports Complex, $145 million. The Games Village, $16 million. Overall expenditure, almost $200 million, inclusive of other things. I don't know what you make of it. I've always had my problem. When I see these figures without a proper breakdown, my heart skips a beat. Final words. What would you say about our expenditure and whether
the NDC spent $60 million to build a Cape Coast Stadium. Magnificent facility.
Times have changed. The cost of everything has
tripled,
quadrupled.
No. In terms of value, in terms of dollar terms, no. In terms of dollar terms, no. So you can't tell me that University of Ghana Stadium, with all the facilities in existence, all the concrete, everything is in existence, you are spending $34 million just to complete it. There's more fees.
More than 2 times
the cost.
Because if the Cape Coast Stadium costs $16 million,
more than
$34 million is $2 million more than twice the figure.
That facility, plus or minus, that is the pain people bear. That is the pain. And to suggest that all these monies have been spent without any renovation works on the Accra Sports Stadium, it all breaks people's hearts. So when again are we going to get the opportunity to renovate the facilities at the Accra Sports Stadium? Because it is hosting international events such as this that compels governments to commit to renovating sports infrastructure. So for me, the figures are atrocious, the costs are atrocious, the cost lines for these projects are so atrocious. And no wonder the ranking member has been asking for, and some other minority members have been asking for a proper audit, a value for money audit. And I agree with them. Yes, by all means, we'll host the games. By all means, the multiplier effect in terms of people spending and leaving money in the economy, it's okay. But in consonance with the Public Financial Management Act, Act 921, 2016, we must always have value for money.
Thank you, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekpo. Thank you for joining us for breakfast this morning. Now, stay with us. After the break, we're going to be contemplating the menace of teenage pregnancy in Ghana. Latest statistics reveal that 15.2% of those adolescents aged between 15 and 19 have been pregnant at some point within their teens. The question is, why is this happening? What are the ways in which we can curb the situation? That conversation coming up next with Sweetie Abochi. Do stay.
From 19% to 11% since 9. The zonal dissemination of Ghana 2022 demographic and health survey. These statistics highlight a complex landscape of adolescent pregnancy and motherhood with significant regional variations. The Ashanti region is the second highest with 24% of adolescent pregnancies. The dissemination of the 2022 demographic and health survey assembled health experts, district and assembly health executives to discuss the implications of the health survey numbers. Sarah Wood is the head of the social statistics section at the Ghana Statistical Service.
For the teenage pregnancy for women aged 15 to 19 years, you realize that for Ashanti region is 24%. And even for the other regions too, it's not the best. That within that age period, we should be having women or young women being pregnant or giving birth. So it's something that is worrying that policymakers will have to do something about.
The Ghana 2022 Demographic and Health Survey is a population-level survey designed to monitor and assess progress in the utilization and management of healthcare services across all 16 regions of the country. The 5-week dissemination exercise focused on data generated from 15 target areas including child health, malaria, infant and child mortality, HIV/AIDS and health insurance. Other exploits include marriage and sexuality, fertility, family planning, household water and sanitation, women's empowerment, domestic violence and agency, consent and cohesion. Director of Regional Offices of the Ghana Statistical Service, Emmanuel George Osei, says the report will provide a vital source of information for the Ministry of Health, enabling the measurement of outcome and impact of health programs.
The Ghana Health Service and the ministry uses our demographic and health survey report a lot. As for that one, I can attest to that. They use it a lot to guide them in their policy formulation and then evaluations regarding health issues in the country. So it is one document that the Ghana Health Service and then the ministry uses a lot for policy evaluations.
Thank you very much. Reporting for Joy News, Clinton Yabua.
Welcome back on the AM show. It's time now for us to turn our attention to teenage pregnancy with some worrying statistics. Now, data from the Ghana Statistical Service shows about 15.2% of female adolescents in Ghana aged between 15 and 19 have ever been pregnant. Now, aside these worrying figures, the question of why this issue keeps recurring is a problem, and the regional disparities are striking. with teenage pregnancy rates ranging from 6% in Greater Accra region to 26% in the Savannah region. The report we just watched indicated that 24% was recorded in the Ashanti region. I'm joined by Zoom by Caesar Kaba Gokozika, who's a health economist and development consultant, to get into the nitty-gritties of this issue. Thank you so much, Caesar, for joining the conversation. Welcome on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to the team for having me.
Right. So let's begin with a simple question. Why, we know that when you talk about adolescents, it's between the ages of 10 and 19. And then we are saying that globally, there's about 1.2 billion adolescents worldwide. Out of this number, about 1.5% or 15% are adolescent girls in Ghana who get pregnant at some points between these ages. What is accounting for this menace?
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you to the team for putting together this conversation in a very timely kind of intervention towards the International Women's Day celebration that we seek to mark. To once again explain and keep talking about the fact that women really have an important role to play in our development as a nation and as a globe. And that is why when we see statistics like this, it's quite worrying, especially for a country that has women as its majority. We want to see them in a place that they can continue to support the development of our nation. And let me just start by saying that, like we know, pregnancy, whether it's with a teenager or an adult, is basically caused by unprotected sexual intercourse between a male and a female, generally. And now the question really is, why will young people of the ages of 15 and 19 go on having unprotected sex and end up becoming pregnant? And like you mentioned yourself, the statistics are quite worrying. 15% as a national average, but it is quite instructive to note that there are many more regions that have higher rates than the 15, like the Ashanti region that has above 20, I think 22 or 24% already, meaning the rate is quite spread across the country with different rates. But to say that when these people get pregnant, they drop out of school, they are unable to pursue their life goals, they become a burden to society, and sometimes it has health implications, so some of them die out of these issues. But now to the question you asked, the reason young people may be having unprotected sex, like you may know, is that we have diverse pull factors, if you want to call them. But one of the key factors is that the psychological and physiological makeup of young people is that they are curious individuals. And we all grew up. We know that at a certain age, we want to figure out what is happening with our bodies. We want to understand what is going on in our system. And so they go on exploring. And so a lot of the time, it is not because they are bad people, but because they are still growing and trying to figure out what is happening to their system. They end up having certain engagements and friendships that lead them to those things. And so if they happen to do that with limited information, then it's a disaster. Because like we often say, when it comes to sexual and reproductive health, it's actually what you do not know that kills you, and not what you know. And so when they are informed, they are better placed to make decisions. Unfortunately, because of the social and the norm system in our communities, we are unable to have conversations about sex with our young people. And so they go on learning for themselves, and it becomes dangerous if they happen to do that with an unprotected sexual intercourse, and they end up becoming pregnant. But there are also the socio-economic elements of things. I usually depict it very simply by saying that young people in certain parts of our country, for instance, still have sexual intercourse with men in order to buy sanitary pads to go to school. Some of them are still having sexual intercourse with male partners in order to feed. And you know the economic implications of our current state means that the concept of intersectionality, like we know, usually says that anything that affects the general population may even affect women and young girls in multiple folds because they are more vulnerable. And so these economic factors mean that a lot of these young people may go on, not because they want to have sex, but do it because of survival. And we had sex for fish in some parts of this country where young girls are having sex for these things. But there's also another worrying element that we still at this age see so many young girls giving out for marriage by their families, or sometimes going into marriage, arranged marriages in certain parts of our country. So we still have child marriages going on. And once a young lady gets married, the next thing by her partner will be to probably have sex with them and lead them to get pregnant, but also the limited access to contraception. So all of these things, like I said, we know that our social system and social protection system is not so effective. And so young girls have their lives in their own hands. However, the tools they need to protect themselves from teenage pregnancy, information services in terms of contraception, are sometimes not available to them or within their reach for so many reasons. And so they end up having unprotected sex and get pregnant. So there are so many implications that lead them to these things. Yeah.
These are the numbers, the age range that these pregnancies are occurring is worrying. Again, I keep saying, because the laws of Ghana say that knowing or any sexual relations with a child below the age of 16 is defilement, is a crime. So if 15-year-old children are getting pregnant, who do we hold accountable for this? Who are the men sleeping with these 16, 15, below 16-year-old girls, impregnating them and letting them go through all the effects that these pregnancies come with? And how do we trace them and ensure that they are brought to justice? Because it's a crime.
Thank you very much. And your ending statement is quite instructive. It's a crime. And once a crime is committed in any form, the state takes interest. We know that it is the reason why when thieves are arrested in our communities, they have attorneys. The government and social systems, the police take them to court for prosecution. It's the same for the young girls. So really the question is, why are we not seeing the people who impregnated young ladies below the 15-year-olds in court? Why are we not seeing them?
So why are we not seeing them?
And
where are they?
It will be an interesting question, but one of the things I mentioned in my introductory statement is that our social protection systems are not effective. And it is something we can't run away from, in the sense that we have instances where these young people do not even make it known, or they don't even get the light that they are below the ages and they got impregnated by someone. But there are also instances where they are taken to court or taken to the state institutions, and our social system go asking that the cases be settled at home. And so there are multiple implications that a young girl whose justice relies on the effectiveness of the system tends failing them by asking for an out-of-court settlement, or some instances it may not even get to court, or if you don't have a good lawyer and you can't pay for, then you may not get your case as you want it, and you always hear the wheels of justice run slowly. So there are so many things. And so even for me as someone in the space of reproductive health, we have to strengthen our social justice systems to pick these issues up. But how do we identify them? Majority of women pregnant, young or old, go for antenatal services. How do we ensure that these initial contact persons at the health system pick the cases up, report to the social justice institutions, and we pick the cases up for prosecution? That's the first entry point. And then when these things are done, we discourage our social fabric, which we have chiefs, religious leaders, opinion leaders involved. sometimes asking for people to be rescued and not be sent to jail. We encourage them to allow these people be used as examples to stop these things from happening. But for me, we must stop them in the first place. And stopping the teenage pregnancies means inform the young people about their sexual and reproductive health, because their lives, because of the ineffectiveness of our systems, is now in their hands. Let them be equipped to protect themselves. Let them know where to report. Let them know how to engage in other activities and not sex if they can abstain. And if they can't, where they can get the services to protect themselves from teenage pregnancy. Because really, regardless of the justice you get for teenage pregnancy, you cannot rescue or repair a teenage pregnancy case. A young person who gets pregnant. Whether you prosecute the person involved or not, the implications are still dire, and the person may still drop out of school. So really, let's prevent them in the first place. Yeah.
Now let's talk about some of the effects that teenage pregnancy has on these young girls mentally, physically, in terms of education and all that. We know that even their bodies are not developed well enough to handle the changes that pregnancy comes with. What are some of the effects that these young girls, or what are some of the effects that teenage pregnancy have on the life of these young girls? So we can take it from all aspects: education, social, psychological, and health.
Thank you very much. And let me begin, like you said, to say that the effects are diverse, from personal, community, as a country. We all bear the consequences of every single teenage pregnancy that occurs. And it is a reason we must take interest. First of all, like you mentioned, young people of their age are not really fully developed to carry pregnancy. And women themselves who have carried pregnancy will tell you that even for them developed, it is not an easy issue. And even the men who are married to pregnant women end up complaining that they are also in distress. And so now imagine a pregnancy in a young lady who lives alone without their partner, who has no social protection system, who in their own homes have to shut their feelings because nobody sent them to be pregnant. And so they are unable to express their emotions. And so the psychological effects cannot be underestimated. It's a lot of tension. They cannot even go to anyone to complain, because even to voice it out alone could have been a major way of ventilating to try and get it down, but they cannot even complain about the situation they find themselves in. So you see them isolated, stigmatized in communities, because once you get pregnant, it is an indication that you've had sex. And that alone, the judgment that you receive from society is not easy. But beyond that is that we see rates of maternal deaths and we try to manage it as a country. Once people's systems are not developed enough and they go into labor, the risks of labor become even multiple folds for young ladies like that, because their systems are still growing and not ready for that. And so a lot of the time, bleeding related issues can even lead to death, because they are still very not mature to do a certain thing, and it's not an easy issue. But there's also the educational bit, that we have majority of our population being female. We continue to advocate, and going into the International Women's Day, to say that these women must take a seat at the development conversation tables. They must drive conversations because they also understand issues and they have experiences and they can shape policies. However, if we keep getting them pregnant, then their education is interrupted. Then we tend to complain that we don't have a lot of females in parliament, a lot of managing directors are males, and all of these people keep dropping through. So you can just say that maybe the next president, who would have been a female, probably dropped out of school due to teenage pregnancy in a certain village, and they are unable to climb the ladder to become what they are supposed to. But there's also the other element of the community and the country. The truth is that poverty has different causes. But once we keep raising dependency rates, then we cannot get to where we want to. Because if we want to be self-reliant as a nation, then we must have people who are self-reliant. The human beings in the system must be self-reliant. And a young girl who drops out of school due to teenage pregnancy has to rely on someone else for feeding, has to rely on the social protection system, has to rely on a man maybe who has to work and share his limited income with the family, who will now be 3 rather than 1. And so there's a whole level of implication for our country. And at the end of the day, we need interventions like free senior high school, because there will still be so many people who cannot pay for their school. There will be so many people who cannot pay for healthcare. And there are so many other implications that come with teenage pregnancy and poverty. But also the fact that as a nation, we may now have to pay taxes to keep the rest of our population afloat. And we may end up borrowing again to sustain some of our systems. So really the implications are dire, from personal to community through to the nation. We must all work to prevent this, because it has implications on all of us.
Of course, because for these young women to grow and make impact on the growth and development of this country, they need to be well educated and protected if the systems are in place. So finally, before I let you go, I was reading a research on from the UNFPA on adolescent pregnancies, and some of the interviewees from the central region were saying that they see pregnancy or childbirth as pride. So when you're young and you do not have a child, and your other colleagues, or, other 16, 18-year-old girls have children, you're seen as infertile. So the question then is, are we doing enough? Accountable for this? Who are the men sleeping with these 16, 15, below 16-year-old girls, impregnating them and letting them go through all the effects that these pregnancies come with? And how do we trace them and ensure that they are brought to justice? Because it's a crime.
Thank you very much. And your ending statement is quite instructive. It's a crime. And once a crime is committed in any form, the state takes interest. We know that it is the reason why when thieves are arrested in our communities, they have attorneys. The government and social systems, the police take them to court for prosecution. It's the same for the young girls. So really the question is, why are we not seeing the people who impregnated young ladies below the 15-year-olds in court? Why are we not seeing them?
So why are we not seeing them?
And
where are they?
It will be an interesting question, but one of the things I mentioned in my introductory statement is that our social protection systems are not effective. And it is something we can't run away from, in the sense that we have instances where these young people do not even make it known, or they don't even get the light that they are below the ages and they got impregnated by someone. But there are also instances where they are taken to court or taken to the state institutions, and our social system will asking that the cases be settled at home. And so there are multiple implications that a young girl whose justice relies on the effectiveness of the system tends failing them by asking for an out-of-court settlement, or some instances it may not even get to court, or if you don't have a good lawyer and you can't pay for, then you may not get your case as you want it. And you always hear the wheels of justice run slowly. So there are so many things. And so even for me, as someone in the space of reproductive health, we have to strengthen our social justice systems to pick these issues up. But how do we identify them? Majority of women pregnant, young or old, go for antenatal services. How do we ensure that these initial contact persons at the health system pick the cases up, report to the social justice institutions, and we pick the cases up for prosecution? That's the first entry point. And then when these things are done, we discourage our social fabric, which we have chiefs, religious leaders, opinion leaders involved, sometimes asking for people to be rescued and not be sent to jail. We encourage them to allow these people be used as examples to stop these things from happening. But for me, we must stop them in the first place. And stopping the teenage pregnancies means inform the young people about their sexual and reproductive health, because their lives, because of the ineffectiveness of our systems, is now in their hands. Let them be equipped to protect themselves. Let them know where to report. Let them know how to engage in other activities and not sex if they can abstain. And if they can't, where they can get the services to protect themselves from teenage pregnancy. Because really, regardless of the justice you get for teenage pregnancy, you cannot rescue or repair a teenage pregnancy case. A young person who gets pregnant. Whether you prosecute the person involved or not, the implications are still dire, and the person may still drop out of school. So really, let's prevent them in the first place. Yeah.
Now let's talk about some of the effects that teenage pregnancy has on these young girls mentally, physically, in terms of education and all that. We know that even their bodies are not developed well enough to handle the changes that pregnancy comes with. What are some of the effects that these young girls, or what are some of the effects that teenage pregnancy have on the life of these young girls? So we can take it from all aspects: education, social, psychological, and health.
Thank you very much. And let me begin, like you said, to say that the effects are diverse from personal, community, as a country. We all bear the consequences of every single teenage pregnancy that occurs. And this is a reason we must take interest. First of all, like you mentioned, young people of their age are not really fully developed to carry pregnancy. And women themselves who have carried pregnancy will tell you that even for them developed, it is not an easy issue. And even the men who are married to pregnant women end up complaining that they are also in distress. And so now imagine a pregnancy in a young lady who lives alone without their partner, who has no social protection system, who in their own homes have to shut their feelings because nobody sent them to be pregnant. And so they are unable to express their emotions. And so the psychological effects cannot be underestimated. It's a lot of tension. They cannot even go to anyone to complain, because even to voice it out alone could have been a major way of ventilating to try and get it down, but they cannot even complain about the situation they find themselves in. So you see them isolated, stigmatized in communities, because once you get pregnant, it is an indication that you've had sex. And that alone, the judgment that you receive from society is not easy. But beyond that is that we see rates of maternal deaths and we try to manage it as a country. Once people's systems are not developed enough and they go into labor, the risks of labor become even multiple folds for young ladies like that, because their systems are still growing and not ready for that. And so a lot of the time, bleeding related issues can even lead to death because they are still very not mature to do a certain thing, and it's not an easy issue. But there's also the educational bit, that we have majority of our population being female. We continue to advocate, and going into the International Women's Day, to say that these women must take a seat at the development conversation tables. They must drive conversations because they also understand issues and they have experiences and they can shape policies. However, if we keep getting them pregnant, then their education is interrupted. Then we tend to complain that we don't have a lot of females in parliament, a lot of managing directors are males, and all of these people keep dropping through. So you can just say that maybe the next president who would have been a female probably dropped out of school due to teenage pregnancy in a certain village, and they are unable to climb the ladder to become what they are supposed to. But there's also the other element of the community and the country. The truth is that poverty has different causes. But once we keep raising dependency rates, then we cannot get to where we want to. Because if we want to be self-reliant as a nation, then we must have people who are self-reliant. The human beings in the system must be self-reliant. And a young girl who drops out of school due to teenage pregnancy has to rely on someone else for feeding, has to rely on the social protection system, has to rely on a man maybe who has to work and share his limited income with the family, who will now be 3 rather than 1. And so there's a whole level of implication for our country. And at the end of the day, we need interventions like free senior high school, because there will still be so many people who cannot pay for their school. There will be so many people who cannot pay for healthcare. And there are so many other implications that come with teenage pregnancy and poverty. But also the fact that as a nation, we may now have to pay taxes to keep the rest of our population afloat. And we may end up borrowing again to sustain some of our systems. So really the implications are dire, from personal to community through to the nation. We must all work to prevent this, because it has implications on all of us.
Of course, because for these young women to grow and make impact on the growth and development of this country, they need to be well educated and protected if the systems are in place. So finally, before I let you go, I was reading a research on from the UNFPA on adolescent pregnancies. And some of the interviewees from the central region were saying that they see pregnancy or childbirth as pride. So when you're young and you do not have a child, and your other colleagues, or, other 16, 18-year-old girls have children, you're seen as infertile. So the question then is, are we doing enough to increase awareness, educate these young women well enough to change their perception on how they see some of these things, like childbirth at a young age, as something prideful to indulge in? Are we doing enough?
I am tempted to say we are not doing enough, because like you mentioned, there are several levels of awareness creation. There's one level of, are we doing enough to inform the young people to make informed decisions about their sexual and reproductive health? Which I say no. I say no because our curriculum to inform young people in schools, because that is where majority of them are, is still scattered, and it's still not comprehensive enough, and it is not informative enough and practical enough to inform them to make informed decisions about their health. And if you realize also, the parenting systems, because of norms, is also failing young people. And so they get first contact of information from their peers, sometimes misinformed, practice misinformed information and get pregnant. So we are failing them in that light, as parents, as teachers, as school systems, but also as a community. Because what you just told me about a system that orients young people to believe that they must get pregnant in a certain community, is not that young person's fault. It's a system that has oriented them. So the social fabric has to be also engaged. We must engage the norms and make people understand that really getting pregnant at that age is also not something that we want to go by. So how do we ensure that we prevent it? So I dare say again that we must have a system in place to engage our chiefs, traditional leaders, to prevent that. So beyond the central region, there are other communities where these things happen. So how do we engage? So I believe at the family level, community level, we are not doing enough, and it is time to do better to inform young people to take informed decisions about their health.
Thank you so much, Caesar Kaba, who is a health economist and development consultant, who joined me. Thank you so much for sharing insights on the implications of adolescent teenage pregnancies on the development of the country as a whole. We'll take a break now. When we return, there's more on the AM show. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's talk about the certified water education Ghana. The primary objective of this initiative by the GANFO's Safe Water and funded by the Paul Dew Jensen Foundation is to build certified technical vocational education programs for students in Ghana to increase the capacity and skill level of young Ghanaians in the water sector. Benjamin Filskov, who's a Senior Director, Strategic Initiative and Collective Action Organization, Global Water Center, is my guest. Good morning, Benjamin. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here.
So, briefly, tell me briefly about this initiative that you're spearheading.
Global Water Center provides education, innovation, and collaboration to keep rural water sources safe and flowing for good. And in 2021, Grundfos Safe Water casted the vision, and we co-developed this TVET concept. TVET stands for Technical Vocational Education Training, and the focus here is to build and implement a strong water curriculum to enhance the sustainability of rural water systems, really to strengthening water ecosystems through an established local institution, the TVET system, which we want to strengthen, and that's system strengthening. We all know that water is a key priority to the government of Ghana and to many other countries globally. And by professionalizing the water sector, we are enabling safe water provision and creating jobs, boosting youth employability.
Right. Okay. This project is towards increasing employment of the youth in Ghana, right? So what are the key components of this technology developed for this purpose?
The key components of this program is of this curricula developed includes components such as pumps, boreholes, solar pumping, design, operation, and maintenance of small water enterprise systems, and water resource management, and it focuses on ethics within water as well, on the national certificate 1 and 2 levels. These curricula, they're designed through collaboration with industry and educational experts to ensure that they meet the current and future needs of the water sector. And they have been approved by the CTVET board to align with certified TVET program requirements, focusing on practical skills and knowledge that meets the industry standards.
So you have already set up a laboratory at St. Paul's Technical School, right? Can you describe how this facility, enhances the teaching and learning experience of the students in this school?
Yes, the project has established a lab at St. Paul's Technical School featuring a demonstration stand for solar pumps and equipment for water quality testing. And these facilities, they provide students with hands-on learning opportunities, enabling them to apply their knowledge in practical settings. And this learning approach helps students better to understand the complex concepts and prepares them for real-world challenges in the world sector.
So that means not only are the students benefiting, but the teachers are included. How exactly do the teachers also benefit? Is there a training of trainers program of something of the sort? Please shed more light on that.
That's correct. There is a training of trainers program, and it's implemented through sessions where the teachers at the school, they're trained together with partners and industry experts. And this approach ensures that the educators are well equipped with the latest knowledge and teaching methodologies relevant to the water sector as it looks today and as it looks in the future. And this the impact of the training of trainers is significant, as it enhances the quality of the education delivered to the students and ensuring that they're relevant, that they receive relevant training to the industry.
So how long have you been operating? How long has the Grundfos Safe Water Project been operating, especially here in Ghana? And how has the reception been?
The reception was very positive, and we have worked on this program since late 2022, and we have just launched the new certificates, National Certificate 1 and 2. And I would say that the goal looking forward is that we are envisioning a model for other countries with similar TVET systems, and by demonstrating success in Ghana through curriculum development and practical training facilities and improved pedagogy, this project can be replicated in the water sector across the continent. And this approach is not only aiming to enhance youth employability and professionalize the water sector, but also promotes a sustainable water management practice in the continent.
Right. So you intend to replicate this project across the country, other parts of the country?
Also,
do you intend to?
Yes, we're also looking to replicate and scale it in Ghana, and are in discussion with partners about that.
So what does the future plan look like on the African continent for the Ganfo's Safe Water project?
We're hoping to scale the program to several other countries in East Africa and West Africa, and are discussing how to lay out those plans.
How do you fund these projects? Because this is a charity project, is it not?
That's right. It's been funded by the Paul U. Jensen Foundation.
Okay.
And also through collaboration with UNICEF, we've also received proportions of funds to work on this program. So it's going forward. It will. We're looking to private foundations and other stakeholders to fund this collaborative effort.
Do you have any partnerships with Ghanaian entities yet?
We do have strong partnerships with several Ghanaian entities. In fact, this program includes 16 partners, so it's really, you could say, it's collective action through a so-called quadruple helix approach, where we're bringing partners together from the civil society, from the government, from the private sector, and from academia. And it's a framework of collaboration for development, where each actor brings the unique perspectives into play, and where the needs of the most marginalized is addressed. And it's a participatory model of problem solving, recognizing that each sector's perspectives in addressing these challenges to the people is relevant. So we do collaborate with Ghanaian NGOs and with the CTVET and with the TVET. We collaborate with the Safe Water Network, with UNICEF, and with Clean Earth, and several other partners.
Well, thank you, Benjamin Filskov, who's a Senior Director, Strategic Initiatives and Collective Action for Global Water Center. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right. Now, by courtesy of EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, will come your way with AM Business shortly. We know that Ghana is likely to lose more than $100 million in additional revenues due to not processing all the raw cashew nuts produced in the country. There's more in this report.
The Ghanaian cashew industry is widely considered by many cashew industry experts as one of the most promising in Africa. Ghana currently produces about 200 tons of raw cashew nuts, according to official data from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, and is among the best quality cashew nut producers in the world. But the sector over the years has been bedeviled by so many challenges.
A lot of difficulties in terms of, improving their livelihoods, in terms of income, earning income, in terms of getting themselves employed, you know, to be able to put food on the table. You know, very, very great challenge. And as, you know, people, as human beings, our main, you know, I think source of earnings you should either be employed or you can be self-employed. Maybe as a farmer or as, you know, an entrepreneur, engage in some kind of business. But for disabled people, there are no opportunity to, you know, be able to get those opportunities to engage themselves, to free themselves. In fact, most times, physically challenged people in Sierra Leone particularly, what they do is to go begging on the street.
I think the cashew sector is dominated in the processing part by women. I manage a factory that has 2,000 women. I mean, that has 2,000 employees. 95% of them are women. So the processing business is already dominated by women. My advice will be for the farmers, the production sector, where we don't have a lot of representation of women. The production is still male dominated because in Africa, you know, it's very difficult for women to have access to land. So that's been one of the handicaps for women.
According to the Ghana Export Promotion Authority in 2021, it is estimated that Ghana loses between $30 million to $100 million every year in additional revenues due to not processing all the raw cashew nuts produced in the country. Experts are worried about the persistent challenges confronting farmers.
And the state of processing plants in Ghana is nothing to write home about. Virtually all the processing plants have closed down, except a few that are producing few thousands. In fact, currently Ghana exports almost 95% of all its production as raw nuts, and it is not good for the industry. And the reason being that our processing capacity is now gone down, and our processors also don't have the needed finance to stock the nuts for the whole year, and therefore those farmers also have to sell to people who can buy and pay them. And that is a challenge the processors are facing. If the processors have finance, especially from the financial institutions that will support them, then they can process throughout the year. But if a processor taking a loan at 35, 45, 55%, it's no-go zone. It is nothing to write home about. That is what is really, really, really collapsing the industry. We don't have long-term finance for the processing sector, and that is a big challenge.
The Ghana Cashew Council alluded that although Ghana's raw cashew nuts enjoys distinct advantages over other producers, challenges such as high raw cashew nut prices and lack of access to affordable finance remain key impediment factors in the underutilization of the country's processing factories to generate additional revenues.
We won't say we have been neglected, because all these years that we have been running, Ministry of Agriculture has supported us in the research, in the distribution, and in even the propagation. But if there's any place that has been regretted, it's from the financial institution. The financial institutions don't really understand the cashew sector, and for that matter, they are not making long-term finance available. If you give a trader a loan at 45% turnover 1 month, and you give that same loan to a processor, turnover 1 year, the processing company will collapse. We have been engaging with some of the financial institutions for them to understand really the culture of cashew processing. Some have understood, but they are yet to make the impact of releasing funding for the sector. But at the moment, we are also talking to our development partners like SECO, like GIZ, to support the sector. In fact, SECO last year even supported with machinery so that processing can go on very well. But there's still the issue of inadequate finance for stocking and stocking for the production process.
Some foreign experts are stressing on the need for Ghana to develop favorable policies to help unearth the huge potential of cashew, urging authorities to emulate the example of Vietnam, which has the most competitive cashew industry in the world.
Program which we recommend to all professionals in the value chain, from public sector or from private sector, because it's really important to understand the chain, to understand the linkages, the production area, the commercialization of cashew, but also we let's say transmit specific skills, how to motivate people, how to moderate sessions and so on, to be a good professional in the cashew value chain.
Based on your observation over the years, what are some of the key challenges you guys have seen in the value chain?
Yeah, key challenges in the value chain is that have been mentioned also in the workshop, in the speeches in the beginning. One is to increase the transformation, the processing of cashew here in the African countries. I think that is really a challenge because most of the cashew is still processed in the Asian countries. The sustainability issues, so we have to look for cashew which is produced sustainability, that is sustainable, which is really an requirement from the European and the American markets. So it shall be free, for example, of pesticide residues or of child labor, so that has specific dimensions. And in the future we need really full traceable value chains also for cashew. To get the access to the European market especially.
What is the role of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to increase the productivity and efficiency of farmers in the cashew value chain by improving crop quality and strengthening the capacity of cooperatives, farmer associations, nursery operators, and input suppliers, as well as boost cashew trade by improving harvest and post-harvest techniques, addressing gaps in data collection, and improving supply chain linkages?
The Ministry of Food and Agriculture is mainly focused on the policy environment for the farmers to have their agriculture thrive. And for cashew, it's part of the tree crops development program that the ministry has rolled out through the establishment of the Tree Crops Development Authority. So all that is needed to make sure that the cashew industry thrives are being implemented by the Tree Crops Development Authority. Government has given them that role to play, from production up to the financing of production activities. All are inclusive, so they will be taking care of that.
Are you guys monitoring what is happening at the tree crop development?
They surely they report to the Minister of Food and Agriculture.
But it seems the challenges still persist.
The challenges persist. That is why they have been brought to find solutions to it. They have been resourced to do what they have to do. They are working with the development partners to get the resources and then the support also that is needed.
Processing cashew in Africa is said to be growing fast since 2016. Thus, development has been attributed to the conducive governmental policies, new technologies, and market-lead initiatives.
Going to this year, I think we may even lose more, because as at January 2024, there were 150 registered cashew buying companies with GCNet. And so these companies were all scrambling for the little production. Our production is just roughly around 30,000 metric tons. And if all these 150 companies are buying even 10,000 metric tons, everything is gone. And they are buying it at a premium, at a higher price, which our processors cannot compete. And once you don't process, you don't add value. When we add value, we sell the cashew 5-6 times more than the raw nuts. And that is where we are running into difficulties with so the few processing companies, local processing companies, currently I'll say it's only one that is doing very well at based in Afenya, Winker, that is doing very well. But because it's getting support from the sector, and it's also taking advantage of donor resources. But the rest are minor processing companies that are processing less than 100 metric tons a year, less than 200 metric tons a year, and it's nothing to write home about.
The situation in Ghana does not reflect the general growth trajectory on the continent. For Joy Business, James Eshen.
Welcome back on the show. Benjamin was telling me yesterday that he has a vast well of knowledge when it comes to cashew. What did you think about that report?
It is factual. There's a lot that we lose. You know, countries like Ghana, Benin, Nigeria, the Ivory Coast, among others, in the sub-region support. I've worked in the ecosystem where, in Brazil, for example, they have a large production, but there are seasons. It's seasonal.
Okay.
And so at certain points, they may not have it there, which is why they actually set up a plant here in Ghana where they could source from the West African sub-region as well. Even the likes of Benin. There are grades, just like with cocoa, where we have standard high-quality cocoa. Our cashew is in there somewhere. It's about the size, it's about the color, and there are other things that you look at. But it goes without saying that if we could process it further, right? Of course, we would make a lot more from cashew. Even the husks of you see there's the fruit, the cashew fruit, which some would use for even drinks, some would use for all kinds of liqueur and all of that. Then there's the nuts, the kernel, and what you can do with it. And even the shell of the kernel.
Is useful.
That thing, nothing is waste. You can use the cashew fruit for drinks or for liquor. You can use the husk of the nuts, the kernel, right? You can use it, some people even use it in bricks, like add it to strengthen. They can use it for so many things in the automotive industry and other things. And then the nut itself is what we also, whether you want to roast it or whatever so it's a one product with so many tentacles. And I agree, if we did more in processing it here, we could get so much by way of benefit.
We have the land for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's Ghana for you. And I hope that in the future we can be strategic about how we actually process these.
Forget even cashew. And I say this, that if you look at the price of cashew per kilo versus the price of cocoa,
which is more
logically we should be going the way of cashew. Not to say we should let go of
abandon cocoa,
but do more cashew, do it intensively. It will take time, but it will provide. And like I'm saying, let's not even think so much about cassava, what we could do from it, the starch and other extracts, and what we could do with it. We're not doing half of what
all we want is fufu. Leave our fufu alone for us, Benjamin. Right, but yesterday was the 67th independence celebration of Ghana. We went out and asked a few people, is this the Ghana you want? What Ghana do you want? We'll open the phone lines for you to join in the conversations, but first, let's see what the people on the street had to say. Is this the Ghana you want?
It's both, all of us. Look, in the developed world, citizens, their behavior solve 50% of their problem, of their leadership problem. You understand? 50% of the citizens' behavior solve problems. And then 50% of our leaders solve the problem. Look, about 95% of our leaders are not politicians. They are using Ghana as a cash cow. They come into politics for what they want or what they will get. Some of them, when they were going to politics, they didn't even have plot in their villages, a single plot in their villages. But they come 4 or 5 years, they are building everywhere. They are not politicians. Politics is science. Politics is selflessness. You are not using it. And then we the citizen, we don't respect the law. We do what we want. I want to eat, so I can put table anywhere and sell. I get angry when I see certain things. These are some of the things country doesn't move on. So I want a Ghana where citizens respect the law, and our leaders also respect the law, and then we work together. Now, politics have divided us. Politics has destroyed everything. So what I want to see is selflessness. Don't come in because of money. Come in to serve the people. come in to serve the people. After all, it's the name you want. It's not the money. Whatever you do, you get paid. I want to see a Ghana where we elect people to go to state institutions, not political appointees. So everything is politics, right? So we have to be serious. Look, those people on the desert, they have nothing. But look at the investment they've done there. We have everything. It means we don't have sense. We don't have sense. No, it's damning.
Well, I would say no. Looking at the situation here in Ghana, for instance, there is no job for the youth. When you complete university, for instance, searching for a job has become a difficult task. So when it happens like that, the youth they end up doing unnecessary things, or they end up, I don't know how to put it, but we are all here in Ghana and we understand the situation here in Ghana. Job opportunity has become very, very scarce these days. And so we are hoping that things will change. So for me, there's not the Ghana I want.
So which Ghana do you want?
We want a Ghana where there will be more job opportunities for the youths, so that we wouldn't be depending so much on our parents. If it's not even our parents alone, you could see that because of lack of job opportunities, some youth are dependent on their boyfriends and they end up doing things that they don't even plan for. So I hope that Ghana will become a better place where there will be more job opportunities for us.
Is this the Ghana you want?
No, please. Why? Like nowadays, how Ghana is going, you don't really know if we are going to survive, I don't know. So it's better for you yourself to do what is right. A better Ghana, a Ghana that you know if someone is outside, far away from, and that person said that, we have a country called Ghana. And it's like, yeah, that Ghana is good. Yeah, you want Ghana to be Ghana, not just like Ghana, like things whereby things are not going on well, schooling is bad, everything, blah, blah, blah. We don't really know. And nowadays, how schooling is going. As the woman said, nowadays, part is a car fare as a student, like I'm a student like this, like car fare and everything, the petrol is going high. So we beg that they should make things better for us.
I like what the young girl said. She said she wants a Ghana that is Ghana, not the Ghana that is Ghana. Benjamin, is this the Ghana you want?
She wants the Ghana that is Ghana. Ghana Vim.
Yeah.
Not the Ghana
not the Ghana that is
but
Ghana.
Where Ghana is right now, to be honest, unless you are someone who in the business community, you're a mogul or something of the sort, old money that has been there for generations, or you're really into something lucrative, or maybe you're a politician. The Ghana we know, some have said that there appears to be a spiritual Ghana and a physical Ghana. The spiritual Ghana, which only the politicians see, is what they talk about, like the president spoke about in the Sona.
Yeah.
The real Ghana is what the rest of us see. If you are in the real Ghana, then your thinking would be pretty much what those people used to. And it's interesting. Students, workers, people from all walks of life. It tells you something.
I haven't met a single person in the past 2-3 years, in a long while, who's happy just to be a Ghanaian living and, looking for opportunities to thrive. Our president said we are on the verge of a breakthrough, but the one or the two things that we used to rally behind, unison, support, football, that one too has gone somewhere else.
Is gone. The economy is gone.
So maybe we should sell the country and share the money among us.
No. That thing people say in jest is
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not even possible to do that. But it makes for very stark reading. If you sit down and analyze, look, for an ordinary person like me, right before we activate the phone lines, you have to purchase fuel every week. Fuel prices are ticking up again.
And you don't even see it. Sorry for interjecting, but you don't see it. It just goes up a peso, 2 pesos. By the time you realize it's just...
I see. Because when I go, I consciously take note. So I know.
Okay.
Utilities are going up what maybe some years ago I could have spent in about 2 weeks, now maybe in 4 days, it's gone. Electricity. Water bills are much higher. The cost of food and everything else has skyrocketed. Your salary has remained constant.
The value is the same.
Your salary has remained constant, and your salary has remained constant. But everything else has. So it's a difficult situation. And if you're unfortunate enough to be in some of our shoes where for some legitimate reasons you may have had to contract loan facilities at some point, it means already that shrunken space is being eroded. And what is left, if you know, some of us, there are a few things we do. Translation work, you would do this here and there, consult for this or that entity. If it weren't for those, the reality is. We have a call on the line.
We have a call on the line.
Samsudeen. The vice president's
Samsudeen, yeah.
Okay. Wale, yeah.
The mate's hometown.
Yeah.
Samsudeen, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Is this the Ghana you want?
Well, good morning. Well, good morning, and so nice to hear from you this morning.
Right. Share your thoughts with us.
Well, this is actually not a Ghana we want, but we must actually say Ghana is actually on its own track to a prosperous and the dreamland we all pray for. You understand? If you consider for the past few years, most of the interventions taken by government, especially the digitization agenda, which has reduced corruption at the lower level. You understand? At the lower level, digitization has been able to reduce corruption in a sense that there is no way you could register for programs and a whole lot of interventions that will come and you like ghost names and all those things that were draining this country has been eradicated.
Right.
You know, some of these things, like I mentioned, like I said, digitization has reduced corruption at the lower level. It's in a sense that I know of a friend who once took this student loan, you understand, years back when we were in the colleges. He completed nicely, had his salaries, and he didn't bother to pay. While he was in the, on government payroll, he never bothered to pay for some of these things. But once this Ghana card issues and leakages of Ghana card needs and all these issues, when it comes in, and then he was able to register for them and did all the linkages. The student loan trust fund was able to.
Samsudeen, I think you'd have to wrap at a point. We have to get other callers. You are the only one who has called so far. So if you could just land for us, we'd be grateful.
All right, thank you. So all I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, the government was able to recover maybe all the loss, or maybe say the support that has been given to him. So at least there's no way you can have your way, maybe taking some loans from institutions and then have your way.
Thank you, Samsudeen. Let's allow other callers to also call through 0302-211-691, 0302-211-691. We actually spent quite a bit of time on Samsudeen. There are other callers also, and we've lost some of them. But anyway, here we are.
Benjamin,
I didn't get the thrust of what
Samsudeen was saying that this is his opinion,
right?
That because of digitalization, corruption is reduced in Ghana. He was citing student loan and some other facilities.
You should go to the ports. You should go to the ports.
I'm just impressed that I found one person who likes this Ghana, because digitalization has actually solved the issue of corruption in this country.
That's his opinion. But from Samsudeen, I guess is the call time for the Sams, because from Samsudeen we go to Samson. Yeah. Samson, where are you calling from? Hello, Samson.
Yes, hello. I'm calling from Bolga.
Bolga. Okay, so right. What are your thoughts for us, Samson?
I think this is not the Ghana we want, and it's obvious. I personally like Benjamin, your take on Good Morning Ghana. Sometimes you come up to say, the ideologies of Nkrumah and all that. If you have
you're mentioning two different shows though, because Good Morning Ghana is a different.
Thoughts, I think.
You're referring to Blunt's thoughts on Friday, right?
Yes, I'm actually going on that tangent because you see, we are all pretending in this place. You see, everybody is pretending. If you want to speak, you speak because you are afraid probably the person who is pushing you may not be happy or whatever it is, you understand. But the thing is, we are gradually destroying our country. And I always fear for our children. My child, I just had a child, and I always fear for him when I'm with him. You understand? We are gradually destroying our country. Especially you, the media, you have to speak up. I know you are doing your best, but you have to now speak up more. Okay? Because the politicians are destroying, whether in what color, whether in NDC, in NPP, or whatever. They enter there because of their selfish gain. You see?
Well,
and it's pity. Because I don't know why a president who comes and wants to make a mark, will abandon some projects or whatever it is that at least practically it makes sense, and you want to abandon it and go for other loans and then squander it and go for another one. Increase our debt, and we are at a standstill. It doesn't really make sense.
Right.
And all these things is the citizens, you and I, that we survive because we have increases their salary. Look at the salary. So they don't really feel it. Their children, all of them are outside. They are living good life at the expense of you and I. We are destroying this nation for us. And not for them.
That's why we ought to vent on these issues. Thank you, Samson, for calling and sharing your thoughts. Sweetie.
Yeah, Benjamin. Your Blunt's thoughts is popular. I'm a fan, you know.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I am a fan. So maybe you can sign my autograph. You can sign an autograph for me later.
This mischief you're up to this early morning. But of course, I'll be serving my thoughts tomorrow. It's clear what I'll be serving on sports and the sporting facilities and cost, as well as the LGBTQ conversation. But we have another caller. Is it Abdul?
Yeah, that's our last caller, Abdul, from London. Hi, Abdul. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, I'm just watching your program on YouTube at the moment. And I just want to put on my own submission too.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the Ghana we know is not what we are having now. Because every day when you have family back home, the messages you get from back home, not really good at all.
Is that it? Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, people that you know, they were doing very well in Ghana. They send you messages that you feel so much sorry for them because they used to have very good jobs. And it's not that they lose their job, but they cannot really look after their family with whatever they are earning anymore. So it means a lot of things have gone high and they can't really look after their family. So I believe a lot has to be done in Ghana. And being out here, we all want to come back home. Sometimes when you look at what's going on in Ghana, you just feel like, do you have to go back or just stay out here? Which is sad. None of us want to be out here. We want to get back home. So if our leaders could do something better, that will help all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharing your thoughts. I see this message coming through on this segment where Catherine Barnes says, hey, what we're hearing about Ghana is sad, though. Does the government of the day listen to the citizens at all? And do they have their priorities right? And she says she's actually been also listening to the Joy Super Morning Show this morning. And she says it's very sad. The government just doesn't get it.
Right. I just want to wish a happy birthday to Mama Ophelia Gaba of Bibiani Divine Hospital. This is coming from our director, Yalforson. He says, from Harriet, Dr. Yeboah, and all the family members, God bless a new age with wisdom. Happy birthday to you, Madam Ophelia Gabra. Later on today, I will be on the University of Ghana Legon campus for,
Go you.
Go me, for Girl Get Up Seminar Campus Stop. So Girl Get Up Africa is a project that I have. We try to, listen, I think that conversations shaped my life. Great conversations, you know, gaining insights into the difference between the people who actually go out and get the life they want and the people who only dream about the life they want and never actually achieve it. Yes. And it comes from living with intention. So the whole focus of Girl Get Up Africa is to reorient young people to live with intention. So awake, aware, and achieving. Whatever it is you think you want, just keep it in your awareness and keep put your best foot forward. Today we are going to do a Girl Get Up seminar on the University of Ghana Legon campus, and I'm really excited about it because the Women's Commission of the Political Science Department invited us to do this. So I'll be speaking there later on today. And if you happen to pass by, please join us for a conversation. You get to see another side of me. Yeah, I'm a motivational speaker when I'm not a TV presenter.
I'm not a girl, but I'm getting up.
Yeah, you're not
a girl, but I'm getting up.
Boss, but I nearly said something else. So that's how we're wrapping up the show this morning. This is the AM show, the best breakfast show on TV. My name is Benjamin Akapo.
And I am Sweetie Abochi. Should we throw a challenge where we start with a proverb and end with a proverb? I'll leave that to you. We'll see whether we can do that tomorrow.
Devi Masatongwa Angoka Kwatoni.
You have to go. Okay, so go ahead with the meaning.
Devi Masatong Angoka Ekwatoni.
Which means?
Akoda, a child who does not listen. Angoka is what? Wire. GC. All right, we are back tomorrow.
Okay, mine would be Amofra Bongwa Omwachichidie.
Okay.
It basically means a child can smash the shell of a snail, but not that of a tortoise. In other words, measure, know what. Don't bite more than you can chew. That's the simplest.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry that I couldn't really explain that. I'll come back tomorrow. It came to me on the spur of the moment. So tomorrow when I come back, I'll come back with the meaning of it, okay? Thank you so much for watching.
I'm not good, eh? Anyway, thank you for watching. Let's see. Let's throw the challenge to whoever is coming on Joy News Desk. See whether they can come with a proverb.
Whoever is bringing you Joy News Desk must give you a proverb, an African proverb in your local language. It's a challenge we're throwing to you.
News bulletin, so they.
Well, this is our own way of celebrating Ghana Month. Okay. I mean, it's not out of. Thank you.
We've done our bit. We're handing over to the crew for Joy News Desk. Do stay on this network. Tomorrow we'll be back, and I'll be serving you my blunt thoughts. Stay.